Okay, everyone. Well, welcome to the June 26th FMDiSC meeting. I'm your host, Elizabeth Swenson, broadcasting to you live from the middle of the Redwood Forest in Boulder Creek, California. If there are any newcomers here today, welcome to FMDiSC. Later in the meeting, we'll give you a few seconds to introduce yourselves to the group. But in the meantime, if you would like to be added to our groups.io notification list, please give us your email in the chat.
You take my car if you need to.
And that also brings me to some housekeeping. Please, everyone, mute yourselves, mute your dogs, mute your devices. That will be great. Okay. We have a really great program for you today. I'm going to try to pop up the agenda here. One moment. Okay. So we've got Rick Kalman from Claris, who's going to talk about the new release. Then we're going to have our staple with Chris Moyer, the Tech News Roundup, which is always great. We'll go into breakout rooms for a little bit. Then we'll come back and do some announcements, and we'll conclude our program today with an interview with two pillars of the Claris community, Susan Fennema and Joe Scarpetta, who have written a book about how to free yourself from owner dependence. Okay. So I had some polls that I put up, but they don't seem to be working, so we're going to skip those. In the meantime, please mute your devices and know that questions are always welcome. So if you have a question, go ahead and post it in the chat, or there is a raise your hand feature in Zoom, and we'll be looking at the chat to make sure that we can get your questions in there and get you participating in the meeting. All right, on with the show. So Rick is here. And Rick, my goodness, there has been a tremendous amount of excitement around this release, starting last month with Ryan's message and then followed up with Martha's demo video. That said, I don't think I have seen anyone whose excitement has matched that of our fellow board member, Sol Rodriguez. So I'm going to ask Sol to join us in this discussion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. So FileMaker 2026 dropped 3 days ago. And of course, the Claris partner community has jumped on that, leaning into the new release with a bevy of blog posts and demo videos about the various features in this release. And it's really exciting stuff. But there is one thing that none of those presentations are talking about, and that is what is the one thing in this release that makes the little kid inside of Rick Kalman, Claris platform evangelist, jump up and down with glee?
I don't know if it's necessarily one thing, but it's a cluster of things, and it has to do with my perspective, having been here almost 26 years, is there are some things that we were able to knock down that I have been hearing for 26 years, people requesting. So a lot of the excitement is around what we're calling developer productivity, or internally we call it developer quality of life, knocking down little irritants that just get under your skin year in, year out of why is it this way. So I think that that is personally satisfying in that Clay and I work together to pepper the release and for future releases full of this stuff. So that would be my I don't know
That's
if it
your
reaches.
happy
Yeah.
dance. That's your
Yes,
happy
that's my
dance
happy.
monologue.
If I can kind of add to that question, Rick, I saw in one of the other presentations that you talked about kind of some sleeper features, including the persistent data storage and the updated XML granularity. Like, what are you excited specifically about those in terms of them being sleeper features?
I call them sleeper features because I think they have direct implications to the agentic coding era that we're about to enter and sort of foundational to the stuff that last month Ryan McCann with his blog and then Martha with her presentation. And because remember, you're going to agentically code on top of the FileMaker platform. So the better it is at doing things like storing JavaScript or HTML and CSS in a much more eloquent way, or the JavaScript add-ons, and then the granularity of the XML that now you can spit out. The smaller you can get the snippet of what you're looking for, the better it is going to be for AI to parse through that and come. The better it is for the uh, the tools like Inspector Pro and to be able to ingest, to do diffs and that sort of thing. So,
Right.
and
Nice.
we've been working on that one for years, right? So it just progressively continues. This whole dream of being able to deserialize FileMaker in XML and then serialize it again and push it back in
Mm.
is getting closer and closer. And of course, that's one of the aspirations of the agentic coding of FileMaker.
So in that regard, can we get specific about the script workspace? Like how far along are you just with the script workspace in terms of the XML granularity between, if you're taking something and you're copying, an FM XML snippet out and working in an AI tool like Claude or something, and then putting it back in. I mean, do we have the XML granularity in the script workspace like closer than maybe other parts, or what do you have any insights on that?
Yeah, so the aspect where you can genetically code or vibe code, if you will, the scripts and calculations and custom functions and relationships, all of those have broken down every single calc, every single
Wow.
script down to this is what a properly formed XML for this one, layout objects, all of those things, and then get put into MD files or skills that these AI tools like Claude Code or VS Code or Cursor can then ingest to essentially keep it the guardrails there about, because AI will make stuff up if you let it.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
really
yeah.
great. So speaking of guardrails, I saw that you guys also released an LMS.txt file, which had a bunch of links to, guides and docs and all that stuff, which is amazing. And I think a lot of, AI forward, tools are doing that. But some of these tools have gone just a little bit further. So for example, in the Angular world, Angular has actually created an MCP server that provides examples and specific, documentation for an AI so that it knows, okay, if you're using the most modern version of Angular, this is the way that you ought to use it. These are the best practices. These are the guardrails so that the AI model doesn't go and, fetch an older version's
Mhm.
information. It- do you think that maybe that something like that could be included in an LMS text?
Well, sure. Yeah. Just send that stuff to me. Last week, someone in Australia had mentioned about, gosh, you guys should you give us your documentation in MD files. And I said, that's a good idea. And I sent it to our internal documentation team, and they came back and said, "Funny you should ask. We've done that." And
Excellent.
then they gave me that the link and then the place that goes and fetch. So I immediately went to Claude Code and said, "Use this when I'm asking you about scripts and calcs." And
Oh, great.
so I was encouraged because they had the foresight to do that without being asked from externally. But it was a big request. Someone had used, I think Stripe had some really good examples of stuff
Right.
that they were referencing. So it's always nice to have someone ask you something and a week later go, here it is.
Yeah, that's great. So does everybody, just in case everybody isn't aware, um, one of the things, can you just talk about, the LMS dot txt file and what it is and just, why it's important?
Yeah, so I don't know how many there are. I think there's for every script, every calc, every page in our help has been deconstructed into these MD files so that For instance, with those files, you could ask something very specific, a new feature or functionality in FileMaker, and it'll go to that source through that. So I don't know how many there are. There's sort of a directory of, with the text file pointing to the hundreds and hundreds that were composed out of there. And yeah.
Yeah. So bottom line for everybody, just to make sure that everybody kind of understands, when you're using AI and doing agentic coding, and you want to point it to a specific um, understanding of, let's say, the documentation, it's a lot easier to provide it a markdown file, which is just all pure text, because these tools are really great at using text, as opposed to sending it to the website that it has to figure out how to traverse the website and, and go through all the different links and stuff. So this is really, it really is great that Claris is doing this kind of thing. It really shows how AI forward they are, and, they're playing, in the big leagues with the cool kids, and doing all the cool things.
Yeah, just a FYI, in FileMaker 2026, if you open up the help, each page has a little copy icon on the top, and if you click that, it's copying the .md, the markdown for that, and then you can use it, to turn it into, you just point to the one that has them all, and that way, any question you ask about any calc, any function, any new capability, it will be able to pull it down from the official source. Now, of course, that can always be augmented, because everyone can say, here's how I want you to do this. Here are my conventions for the specific one, but at least you have a good starting place
Yeah.
to go.
It's a little bit of a double-edged sword, because there's so many links in there that if the AI needs to go through all those links, all of a sudden your context window gets bloated, right? So we're gonna have to be smart as a community about deciding which one of these links that we really want to use. Maybe we open it up and say, go to this specific one for this specific reason. But still, it's pretty amazing. I want to go back to the persistent storage feature that was a sleeper feature that you talked about, because I'm curious about how it's going to work with AI tools like Cloud Code or Codex or Cursor or something like that, because these tools typically will put a folder on your desktop in whatever your development directory is, and then you'll bring down, let's say, a JavaScript library, and it goes into your node modules or something like that. Um, it seems like the persistent data storage is specifically intended for use with the web viewer. Is Whereas, if you were doing some kind of front end, web front end, where FileMaker is the back end, you wouldn't really use that. So is persistent data storage really just intended for web viewer usage, or do you have other ideas? Is Claris looking at other reasons or use cases for the persistent data storage?
Yeah, I mean, the example, on I think on Wednesday, I think Jeremy Brown did an hour on persistent data storage on FM Training TV, where he sort of walked and talked through. Because I think the reason I say it's a sleeper, I have an intuition that AI is going to be able to take advantage of it. But you think about one of the reasons that is, if you think about something like ProofKit, where you can essentially agentically ask for a really rich interface that's going to then be sucked into a web viewer object in FileMaker, and you can even push it over there. Well, that's just CSS and JavaScript and HTML, right? So where are you going to put it? So you could have a store of all of these things that you're pointing to. You can get to them via calculation. So you place them in via script. You can delete them via script, but then you can also query them. So there was some interesting examples there, but are so fresh and new. Here's what's going to happen. You guys are going to tell us what you're ultimately going to do with it. Clay refers to it as the quadruple $, sort of as an example, because it persists, right? What's really going on is you're literally writing to a Draco catalog, that is a place for you to put stuff that you name. You really can't get at it in any other way other than querying it, sticking stuff in there, and then a calc to say, show me a list of these things. I think that I've already received enhancement requests. This is my 5th presentation this week on FileMaker 2026. So you give it a name already. It's like, can we have a calc, please? It's the only place you didn't put a calc there. So that request has gone in. Apparently there's a typo in the description on not a typo, but the wrong word for it says you can use IDs to get back to groups, but you need to use the name. So that'll go in and we'll fix it. But man, it's so raw and new.
Right.
People use it for version control. You can stick maybe your user specific settings there because it's all accessible via Cal, right? So I think this will be one of those things where, next time we have an engage, you guys are going to be blowing us away of what you figured out how to do with this stuff. And of course, as we start getting feedback from the stuff through the summer with the agentic coding stuff that we're going to be delivering, then this stuff is going to evolve. Very interesting. I have no idea where it's all going to go, but man, is it fun.
Yeah, it's exciting. Elizabeth, I didn't mean to dominate here. Do you have something
Pardon?
that you wanted to bring up?
I'm over
Ow.
here doing my own
Back it
personal
off like
happy
you always
dance.
do.
No,
I
you
tried to
smacked
back
my
it up.
glasses. I did
Hey,
not.
Colleen.
You did too.
Wow.
I-
Okay. There's a lot
Good to
of
see you.
there's a
Yeah,
lot of stuff going.
I think do you have, Elizabeth, the ability to mute everybody centrally?
I don't know if I do. But anyway,
Elizabeth, you can, if you look at the participants list, there's mute buttons next to their names.
yeah, I'll go through individually. But anyway, I was just about to say that I'm just jumping up and down doing my own personal happy dance listening to this conversation. So please carry on. Please pepper Rick with your questions because I am digging this.
Yeah, I mean, I do have some other questions. So generally speaking, how does Claris see the day-to-day role of the traditional FileMaker developer changing over the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, what's the picture in Claris's mind of how the community is going to, move forward?
And so you think Claris has a mind, huh? That's interesting. It's a good question. It's a really, really good question. So obviously, all of the software development is going through a radical evolution right now. And one of the things I've seen is people who maybe are running their successful consultancy now that really haven't been hands-on developing for years are going into tools and vibe coding or agentically coding file and just getting really giddy, right? That's a very addictive thing. People are doing things till 2 a.m. It's like the kids that play video games for 36 hours. So it's really this invigoration. It's one of those things where you have to actually do it to understand it. And it's not the same thing as, everyone sort of chatted with AI, with ChatGPT and asked it questions and got back stuff. And that's fantastic in and of itself. But once you get into something like Claude Code and now what you're into what seems like a CLI, but it's got superpowers, right? So you begin asking it to do stuff for you, and it's just addicting and it's fun and it is so helpful. And so I think what'll happen, it's an interesting question because what I am coming to understand as you play more and more of these tools and you see the capability they have for, as we talked about, the MD files, but the skills, and you can run projects and you can begin to mold it to exactly how you want to do things. You can corral it and get to be less and less sort of free form and wild because you're not sending it out to the great, everything that ever was said about FileMaker that's on the internet. And you begin to recognize the fact how much about as a consultant about how to talk to a customer about what they're looking for,
Yes.
solving problems for them that actually will solve their problem, that are secure, that they're not sending their data out there and all of that. So all of those skills that you have are exactly what these AI tools need in order to be guided. And so it's just uncanny how it needs us, and then we can be more productive. I'm a bit concerned, though, about people who don't really know FileMaker and can do some incredible things with it and have absolutely no idea what's going on or why it did that. And I think those are where the dangers are. But anyone who, ironically, the longer you've done this, the more knowledge you have of what something should look like. You can begin to, you've got to put your eyes on it, and use the knowledge that you have, and don't trust it, without looking at it. I think so. It's really hard. I think it will change how people approach the product, because right now, let's face it, it's got a steep learning curve if you're brand new to it, right? Unless you
Sure.
have some familiarity with other development environments or databases, those people have a little bit easier time. But if you're someone who's technically savvy and have a specific business problem that you're motivated to solve, and you can pick up FileMaker and you can, trial and error your way through it, you can go to a training, ultimately you probably end up hiring a consultant. But they should be able to start quicker, but it's not clear to me how much they will actually understand about what they're doing. And the
So
other thing is, the other thing is this space is evolving so radically quickly that there are all these things we say it doesn't do that it probably will. The second you say it doesn't do it, then someone
Gonna
figures
do
out
it.
how to make it do it, right?
right.
So I don't know where this ends up. I don't think anybody does, right?
It's
So.
really interesting because I mean, there's two perspectives here. There's, the old school FileMaker new person that comes in and likes the fact that it's a GUI interface, you can drag and drop, and it feels accessible in the beginning, and maybe they're not as technical, right? And then there's, another perspective of somebody who is deeply technical, who is, already a web developer, and they have to do all the things. That steep learning curve that you're talking about that exists within FileMaker exists for all developers, but they have to piece together all of those things individually, right? So they may think like, okay, well, React is easy because, I just have to learn this thing. Well, then you have to add a router to it, and you have to add a backend, and you have to figure out how that backend is going to have an API and all these things, right? So I think it's really a matter of perspective. If you look at FileMaker and say, oh my gosh, it's this huge learning curve, yes, that's when you take every single feature that it offers. But if you're coming from, an external perspective, even somebody who's very highly technically skilled and who has a lot of experience, they still have to build the full stack,
Mhm.
right? And so they still have that learning curve. So it seems to me like, and I've been saying this, I've probably a broken record by now, every single FMDiSC meeting.
This is why you're here, Soul.
There's two things. First of all, FileMaker developers have the skill set to be at the forefront of development, especially web development in general. If they learn that missing component, that's the web development side. And then on the flip side, web developers, if they discovered FileMaker, would come to find that they have a tool that has all of these amazing features built in. We're talking about server-side scripting. How do you do that if you're just on the front end, right? You have to do PHP or Node. That's another extra language you have to learn. Deployment. How do you do deployment if you're on the just the web front end? You have, most people are using something like Vercel, or now there's like Lovable and stuff like that. But FileMaker includes a simple way to deploy automated backups, built-in authentication. Authentication is such a struggle on the front end, right? We've got built-in authentication. We have rich calculation fields, right? This is something that also can be a struggle. You'll have to learn Node or something on the back end, and so, depending on which database you're using, or some kind of edge Lambda, serverless functions. We have encryption at rest and in transit. We have row level security with the built-in security that FileMaker server uses. We have REST APIs and OData API built in. This is another layer that front-end web developers have to figure out. We've got let's see, integrated with hosts on. So we have a web host.
And just to add to that, because Dave Knight posted in the chat, security.
Yeah, that's what, well, I said row level security. We've got
Yeah.
authentication. Both of
Yeah,
those
yeah.
Yeah.
are
So
major things.
here is what I've come to believe about this that sort of was an insight. One, I now think about this entire area, especially how FileMaker intersects with agentic coding, is I picture an iceberg with the interface that you're coding, and it can be incredible now, right? With these tools, is just the tip, and setting underneath it is all the things you just talked about, right? And so then it dawned on me that I used to think about FileMaker through the lens of FileMaker Pro as a development environment, my IDE, if you will. And then I realized, oh, wait, with this new stuff, that is just a wrapper around
Yes.
Draco and data and relationships and your scripts and your calcs and your security and all of that the platform already has, right? And so
Right.
it just is so interesting. Like, what the heck is a file maker, right? But you think about what the magic this thing actually is. There is a file that is an artifact of the development you did, and everything is encapsulated in that file. You take that file, throw it on a Windows machine, throw it on a Mac OS machine, throw it on an iOS device, throw it into a web browser, frickin' same file, right?
Yeah.
It's incredible, right? And we sort of just take that for granted, right? And now you can act upon that because the entire thing can be serialized and deserialized as XML. It can be parsed. VS Code is pretty good at doing those kinds of things. We're being able to ingest SNP. So it's a radically different world, but it is every single thing that you guys know like the back of your hand. So it's an interesting mashup of the capabilities we have, because one of the things we all look at is why would you need FileMaker anymore in this era, right? But it's all the stuff it brings along with you. And if you know that stuff as you guys do, then those are things that are less likely to go wrong if you're vibe coding everything from scratch where you don't even realize that exists and you just expose all your customer information to the internet. There's gigantic security holes because you have no idea about that. So I think that it's sort of a best of both worlds thing. I think there's a real upside
Yeah.
for anyone that just jumps in here and begins playing with this stuff.
I think so too. And it kind of begs the question to me, like, is there value? Well, and I would say there is. Is there value in marketing to the rest of the, development world? Because we have something that's unique, in FileMaker Server. They have all these back-end as a service databases now where you can, agentically vibe code, if you will, on the front end, or agentic coding is the new cool term, right? And the back end just gives you all of these features, but none of them do it as well as FileMaker, in my opinion. And so, I can see you've got the market that currently exists of FileMaker developers who are used to the GUI, and we're starting to learn how to vibe code, and we're starting to implement, vibe coding in the web viewer. And maybe some of us will continue to build these amazing front ends using React and Next.js and Angular and that stuff. But there's the rest of the web development world out there who needs a back end as a service like FileMaker Server. And I just would be curious, if that's something that Claris has even recognized. It seemed like in Ryan McCann's blog post that it's kind of something he was alluding to. Like FileMaker already has all this stuff. And so I think a mature web developer would look at it and say, wow, this is really amazing that you put all this stuff together and I can access it.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing is probably the Achilles heel of FileMaker. Well, there's a few of them, right? One, almost everyone's heard of it and says, "Oh, that's still around. I used that when I was in college 20 years ago." That kind of thing, right? And then its interface. It's like, for instance, what you can do with ProofKit and what you can point to, and the kinds of objects you can now put in a very rich layout that's rendered in a web viewer. It would take us 100 years to build natively as objects on a layout, the system we have now. They're just there, and that's just one library. So already we've talked for 20 years about wanting to go to the next level with portals and have essentially a rich data grid that you can interact with. And it's just a lot of work to get to. Now you can just ask for it, right? And there it is. And so it's so incredible in a way. It goes all the way back. I mean, I remember first joining this company when we ran the old listserv rather than the community, and we talk about separation of data and from structure because 4D was doing it, and Servoy was sort of like that too. And now you really have an opportunity to just have all of your business logic and all of that's really going on that took your skill to put together. Now you can just put some fantastic interfaces on, probably to the point where you can almost have a custom interface for a user depending upon who they are. I think that, so it's the interface through FileMaker Pro as it currently stands with the objects and stuff that can look dated because of it just, it's not up to, look at the behavior of something like Studio, where it dynamically resizes depending, all of those things that you have to sort of do by hand in FileMaker. It's why I say the real value of the platform is outside of what FileMaker Pro as an interface builder can be. And so even though obviously you can create fantastically powerful things with what we've given you, I think we've just unleashed a number of more tools.
Yeah.
I think it'll have changes to, licensing and, potential services out there if you could expose that kind of thing. Often we have shown, technologists are thinking they get blown away by what we take care of.
Yeah.
And we just take it for granted, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, what?
Well, and that's why I
Yeah.
kind of come
Well,
in.
hold on.
Go
So,
ahead.
one question. We have a question from David Knight, but Dave, do you want to go ahead with that before Sol?
Yeah, I just want to make a really quick point. When you look historically at how we all got here as developers, if you go back far enough to the Bob the Boat Builder days, in the early days, everything was blue screen. You needed to be a computer programmer to build anything. And then the Great Revolution hit, Access 4D, Paradox, FileMaker, all the desktop database platforms got here. Myself and many of the people who've been doing this for a lot of years made our bones on the fact that Bob the Boat Builder built, oh my God, I'm a little tiny business owner. I'm in the garage. I built this little thing from these FileMaker templates and I stitched it all together and I got it up and running. And now I'm a 40-person shop and I'm the only one that knows how to do this. And I can't get into the relational stuff and I can't leverage some of the API stuff. So in broad strokes, we watched the public build really bad systems that they didn't know how to support, extend, and scale and enhance over time. That's how I started my career, was going, hey, all these little do-it-yourselfers, these shade tree mechanics out there built something and they need to be able to take it to the next level and so forth. To some extent, we're seeing that democratization again, things with like Claude, where people are going, hey, over the weekend, my kid and I built this big giant thing. Great. Kudos to you. You've got this system. Now you've got to support it. You got to enhance it. You got to maintain it and so on and so forth. So a lot of the skill set that we have inherited over the years of grabbing somebody else's sort of cobbled together thing that they don't really know how it works or how to extend it, we step in, put on our capes, and take it to the next level, right? So in some respects, I think we're seeing a bit, we have to sit and wait and watch all these people build all these sort of beautiful but clunky apps that don't quite, they don't understand relational modeling. They don't understand some of the inherents that we have learned as data modelers and experts and so forth. So I kind of think this is almost like another redo of the world is now building stuff that they never were able to do before, and we're going to be there to kind of come in after the fact and take it to the next level.
I think that good observations, Dave, for sure. It's funny is like I contend that in the 80s, FileMaker was vibe coding.
Yeah.
That was it, right? And now we have this new thing. But I swear the biggest last like 6 weeks as we've got more and more immersed in what's coming next is just the how much someone who has been creating and successfully so, and a lot of times your consultancies and you're running it, helping customers build business applications that they can rely on, and all of the skills, because the FileMaker skills were just the necessary tool you use to get the outcome that your customer was paying you for, and you can bring all of that to bear, and now you are the grand guide to have AI do your bidding. And it's such an important skill. I mean, you know so much about what I tell it to do, how I mold it to just exactly how I want to run what I'm doing, how I can leverage it. Sure, you can use it to help you build scripts and calculations and interfaces, but you can also leverage it to help you do the discovery initially with the customer. The other thing that you now have the capability of doing is you all know that your customer wanted X, Y, or Z, but they didn't have the budget for it. And so it never gets to it. But now it's so much more easy and efficient, especially if you've got the back end already to support it with all the things we've been talking about already built in, where you can deliver that to them. And then you can either make more money or you can retain the customer because they got more for the same amount. It's up to you to decide how to do it. But I think that, if you look at this not as a glass half full, but a half, I mean, it's half empty, but half full, there's a massive upside. And I swear that anyone who dives into this and starts looking will recognize how they run their business. And now it's like saying, hey, throw my knowledge into these tools and these MD files and these skills for this project, that kind of a thing. And on top of that, people are using this to go back to legacy systems that either they built or multiple developers built, and they're just bringing it forward and saying, I've seen people inside Apple do this already. They inherited like 6 different developers over 20 years, so something that billions of dollars is passing through to run some back end service at Apple because they're heavy FileMaker users. And they're able to ask it, bring it forward, use the XML, say apply my rules towards it, or just go into a script they wrote 6 months ago and go, frick, I didn't comment it. What did I do here? Or they inherited some script and say, walk through this, explain it to me, comment it. Even that one thing alone is huge. And that's just like one of 1,000 things at our fingertips now. So yeah, it's exciting. You can tell I'm excited.
Awesome.
I've been doing this a long time, right?
I love it.
That's great.
Hey, Rick, we've got a question from Joseph Arzate.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
Good morning. My question to you is, I've seen a lot of, involvement in the CLI tools, right? You have the FM upgrade tool, you have the FM data migration, and the FM developer tool. And I'm seeing a pattern here that we should be able to do more with those CLI tools, right? In a form of automation, using AI to actually, possibly even produce at least the base code and all of the difficulties around running a CLI command, correct? Do you see us being able to do more with those tools? Like, is there there's big stuff coming with the CLI tools?
Absolutely. So just the FileMaker solution upgrade tool alone is going to be heavily leveraged for the agentic coding for scripts and calcs and relationships and all of that for sure. And the interesting thing about CLI is almost like, oh my gosh, that's so contra why someone used FileMaker. But guess what? AI rocks with CLI, right? And
yes.
So it's not your grandfather's CLI. Like you go into Claude Code, it looks like a CLI, but you can chat with it. And on top of that, when I first was experimenting internally with some of the stuff that's coming down the pike, I didn't read any of the documentation. I installed it and I asked Claude Code, tell me what you can do. It told me what to do. I said, do the things you need to do to set up the environment. And it did it. And it worked, right? And it's like, oh my God, I didn't have to read anything. I just asked it to do my bidding. But you got to remember to ask it, hey, tell me what you're capable of. Why would you read anything? Just ask it what you're capable of, right? And it'll tell you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, along those lines, one of the things I think that's required for us to be successful at vibe coding or agentic coding with FileMaker is the ability to change schema. And so I know OData, you can update schema with OData, right? So I was surprised that the MCP server currently doesn't allow you to change the schema. But it sounds like, is that something that's going to be available, in FM26 as these new features with the ability to manipulate the XML? Is that going to be something that we can do? We can talk to Claude and say, hey, I'm thinking about an app that does this. What are the tables that I need? And then it can, automatically create the tables and the fields for you and the relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, it's interesting is you might start that way just to build down the basics, and then And then you might then jump into FileMaker in sort of more classic way and tweak
Right.
stuff as well, because you're fully familiar with the tool set, right? So the thing about the agentic coding stuff that we announced at the beginning of last month in May, was worked on separately from what was worked on for FileMaker 2026. And as you know, in FileMaker 2025, we peppered FileMaker full of AI scripts and calculations to do a lot of stuff. But there was a learning curve on that stuff as well. All of that stuff is now available for AI to act upon, because it's going to act upon scripts and calculations, right? And it'll do your bidding based on what you ask it. But then we also have some foundational pieces that will then be leveraged in, with our agentic coding plugins and stuff that are going to be made available. Things like, the granularity of what you can push out for a catalog that's XML, because so you don't have to push out, a million lines of XML and then pay tokens to parse through it all because you're just trying to do this one thing. You can just surgically get those things out. And so those, that's the path we're going down. So what's happening? Obviously, there's a lot of people doing stuff. Proof kits out there. FM dojos out there. Other tools out there. There's a ton of stuff in Git, and people outside of just the hooks that we already have in our product can do some incredible things. But there are certain things they cannot do. Everyone's have to figure out, how am I going to do the copy and paste? Do I need a plug-in? What are the different styles that I require? Right? There's certain things that you just can't do outside of Claris. So what we're doing is kind of have the best of both worlds. This space is moving so fast, we cannot bake it into FileMaker and not have it be obsolete. Right. So if we go outside and have plugins that understand how to talk to FileMaker, looking into it, and then knocking down those things like, getting it in, having to go through the funky copy and paste, and it's reliable, and we'll probably leverage the FileMaker upgrade tool and XML to do that. Then you get sort of the best of both worlds there. Right. So then what will happen is, as we knock down those things that only FileMaker or Claris can do, we will then put them into the base, platform. So what you're essentially doing is acting upon the platform you're already aware of, but it's going to become more and more powerful and capable, and we'll knock down the things that, I can't quite already get there. Code in Full City, just from the ETS that for 26 was doing some incredible things. With FileMaker, essentially bringing up an entire file from scratch, and then ran into certain limitations that they could not get around, and they're just limitations. Well, they send them to us, and we say we will knock down those limitations so you don't have them, right? So think about, I can vibe code or agentically code a gorgeous new modern UI setting that I could only dream of, or would take me freaking forever to do in FileMaker if I could do it at all, very, very easily. But you also want to be able to do the same thing with a classic layout with the objects we already give you, and it's just that it's more efficient that it does it than me, right? So people are going to want to have both. Right. And so that's what we're striving to do. And then the reason we're doing it outside initially is because of how fast it moves. A year ago, you could not do these things. A year later, all of a sudden it worked, because these models are getting more and more and more powerful. Before, there were so many errors and hallucinations, and it was just frustrating. You could only get so far, but you couldn't get far enough. That all changed in essentially since January. And then what's happening is, every new model that's powerful helps the next one be even more powerful. So we don't even know where this is going, right? Because it's such a steep curve that it's really hard to see, where, it's like we go through these hype cycles that they're hype cycle, and then we go, oh, okay, we get it. And then there's another one, but they're not really hype cycles. They're sort of like,
they're building blocks at this point.
Every time someone says, oh, but it can't do that, is already the beginning of, oh, yes, it will.
Yeah,
right?
that's awesome. Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
So, there was something that you said that triggered an idea, and then I got sucked into that hype cycle, and I was thinking about Mythos that just came out, and how that's just going to push things forward. Oh, I remember what it was. So in FileMaker, there's certain conventions that we have that are unique in the database world, and the one that I'm really thinking about is anchor buoy, right? And anchor buoy is not really necessary when you don't need to worry about context like in a regular SQL table or something like that, but FileMaker is unique in the way that we use context in it. It's almost its own guardrail, and it's really great to see things visually and set things up. But I have this concern that if we start doing agentic coding, it's not really going to be trained very well on FileMaker specific techniques like anchor buoy. Is Claris thinking about things like that? Like, in order for us to be successful, we're going to have to figure out how to give instructions to our AIs to say, "Hey, this is what we do." Because if I look at the Claris help, uh, you know, pages, there's mention of anchor buoy, but it's not robust.
Yeah, so absolutely. So, but here's the thing is anchor buoy is still a choice, right? And so what we have to be careful of is it should know how to do anchor buoy, but it shouldn't force you to do anchor buoy if you don't want to do anchor buoy. I can almost imagine a day where ultimately you're not going to care because you're not even going to look at the relationship graph and you're just going to tell it to do the most efficient thing for what I'm trying to accomplish, the most performant thing for what I'm trying to accomplish. And sure, it's like you could look at the raw HTML code,
Right.
right? But you might not care. But
Right.
on the path to get there is where you sort of do have to care. So one of the things I was just reviewing was an MD file where essentially it was saying, here's the proper pattern to use, and it's anchor buoy. And the question then is, but is that the only technique that makes sense, right? And then where does your choice come in as a developer? So you have got to be able to say, here's some base things that's performant, functional, and I can understand what it's doing, but I've got to be able to also say, but I want also to do this way. Don't
Right.
do that. And so that's where some of the tricky stuff comes in because I don't want to bank in like one, company's naming conventions.
Right.
I want you to tell it what your naming conventions are, right? And because yours is going to be different than someone else, and they all make sense to you. Someone will do Z underscore, and someone will do ZZ underscore or two underscores, and okay, it should be yours, right?
Right.
Because then someone else's idea of how they run, because the entire thing is bespoke. Every
Right.
single one of you does something different than everyone else. We're all snowflakes, right? There's a lot of techniques everyone uses, but they just, do them slightly differently. And the second you force everyone down the same path, I think you lose something.
Yeah.
But we'll work our way into this because it's just moving so fast.
It's an interesting middle ground because, for everybody who has, these long-standing FileMaker files that they have where they have layouts that are specific to a context, you need anchor buoy. But if you're throwing everything into a single layout and it's a web viewer and you're just, routing HTML pages, you can use an API for all your data calls or something. Or if you're on a web front end, like I tend to do, I start with the web front end and use FileMaker Server on my back end. You don't need anchor buoy, right? Well, I mean, it's actually helpful because sometimes you want to lay out to specify the data that's available on that specific layout. But no, I hear what you're saying, and we're in an interesting middle ground right now, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I asked, how is Claris thinking about what uh, FileMaker development is going to look like in the next 3 years? But I guess it's really hard to know because, like you said, everything is just changing so rapidly. Even in 6 months, everything could be different. But it's really exciting what you guys are doing. I love the fact that you were excited about it, and it's just there's a dare I use the word vibe about this new release, and it's exciting.
Yeah, it's, after 26 years to be as excited as the day I joined FileMaker Inc. Is no mean feat, right? Because
Yeah,
I've seen a lot, right? And also there a bit of pride in that my very, very first feature as a brand new FileMaker product manager was the web viewer object. And my God, is that thing had legs.
Amy, yeah, that's
Does it
nice.
have legs? And along the way, being the guy that said, Dominique, we should have a RESTful API in
Yeah.
FileMaker. Lucy, we should keep going down the path of JSON. All of those things, that decisions we made that took FileMaker from being a data island to being open to the entire world, where now we're just the greatest integration hub of just about everything out there. Those were decisions that had to be made all along the way over years and years and years. So, I put hundreds and hundreds of features in
Yeah.
FileMaker over those years, but this moment is even beyond that moment from 6 to 7. 7 was a sea
Yeah.
change. We would not be here if we didn't do 7, because it blew away a lot of the limitations. It gave us the modern FileMaker, but oh my God, you guys had to relearn everything, right? We had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of what you had to read in order to understand what we just did to you, but we made it, and it gave us the foundation that they built so much capacity into that we could grow on top of that. And that's, you know, you know, everyone should bow down to Clay Makel. 40 years as the architect, and that guy is an oracle, right? He knows everything, and what a value it is. So FileMaker is Chris Krim, John Thatcher, and Clay Makel in a box, right? Those guys are freaking brilliant, and and like I said, Clay still makes me feel like a newbie, and I've been here 26 years. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Elizabeth, did you have any interjections here?
I mean, I'm first of all just so thrilled with how this conversation has unleashed Rick's inner child and just talking about FileMaker. And it is so exciting. I myself have recently started using AI with FileMaker, and it's been such a game changer. So I'm really excited about all these changes that are coming. Do we have any questions from anyone else? I've been trying to keep ahead of the chat. I think we got everyone who wants everything to talk about. Anyone else? Or Sol, do you
I
have
do.
more in your
I have more.
brain?
Yeah. So, there's this new feature where we can export specific catalogs to split XML files, right? Can you talk a
Yes.
little bit about that and how Claris foresees us using that feature?
Yeah, so if you're in FileMaker 2026 in the tools menu and save file as XML, once you launch that, the dialog comes up. You'll see a long list of catalogs. You can choose them all, or you can pick and choose which ones you want. You can just choose one if you want. Even persistent data store is one of the catalogs, right? That you can export the XML. There is a little affordance in that dialog, a little checkbox that essentially says, I can't remember. I'd have to essentially making it available to tools, like it doesn't say Inspector Pro, but analysis tools, right? So I know for a fact that Vince with Inspector Pro is taking advantage of all of the kinds of things that he does, because you've got the fine granular capability now. All that stuff is in XML, and he can ingest it, and it's sort of the gateway to being able to do a diff. If I all I want to find out from Inspector Pro is what has changed in my scripts, I don't have to push out everything. I can just have that one catalog. Eventually, it'll probably get to the point where it'll even get smaller and smaller, because
Mm.
the less that you give AI to have to churn through and make comparisons, the more predictable the outcome. I think we're trying to have the best of both worlds. We're trying to have something as fantastic as AI, but something that's deterministic, that I know that it will do this every single time. What that mashup and mix is, I don't know. Like, for instance, I know that I want to have semantic capabilities to be able to ask questions about my data and say, show me what's going on in my data with the dashboard. Boom, there it is, right? Of course, you always have to be careful. The data is still king, right? If you're going to give that to an exec and they're going to make decisions about the business, it damn well better be accurate, because they're going to make decisions based on what they're seeing, right? So there's an awesome responsibility there. But, there we already have, the thing is, this is the thing that keeps on giving. Because I think in terms of what it would take for us to actually put it in FileMaker, we have a fantastic BI or reporting tool now, that you can just tell it what you're looking for, because you're pointing it to the data and say, use these tables, these, and then now you have the thing with base table annotation, where you can say, this table has this kind of data in it for this purpose. The field annotation, this field, regardless of what it's named, is intended for this, which means that AI has to do less guessing, because you're telling it, giving it the context it needs. If it's looking at AA underscore underscore dollar sign, blah, 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 it has freaking no idea what that is. But if you tell it the intent of it, and then on top of that, the dialogue that you do that when you're in managed database and you're in the fields tab and you click on advanced, up comes that dialogue where you can tell the LLM what that field's for. But there's also a little tick box that you open it up, it opens up the calculation, and there's JSON in it. And in there, you essentially now have friendly field names.
Yeah.
26 years I've been hearing about that as a side effect, right? And then it has FM underscore sort, FM underscore table heading. You can then determine, okay, I want this friendly field name to be used in the sort or the export for my customer, and you can leave your conventions there, and therefore but you don't have to subject your customer. And it goes one step further. It's all by calc. You can say, use the language on the operating system. So in Italy, give me the Italian label. In France, give me the French label, right? So all of this side effect of trying to feed something to AI. The thing that's really interesting is a lot of the reasons why we're able to give you things that you've been asking for 20, 25 years that we could never get to, because it's just all the things that need to do strategically. You could never made the cut. AI needs it. So then you go, oh, okay, if we give it to AI, why on earth wouldn't we give it to you? And then we give it to you, and now you have friendly field names. We wouldn't have put friendly field names in FileMaker if it wasn't for AI, but as a side effect, now you have it, right? And there are so many of those, right? It's just it's crazy, And the other thing is, and I've said this a couple times, some of you may have heard it, but when AI hallucinates and makes up a script or a calc or that doesn't actually exist, I look at it and go, that's a feature request by AI, because it should exist, right?
Yeah. So I think this is one of the sleeper features, really, because it makes FileMaker so powerful in the hands of AI. Because before, if you pointed your AI using the MCP server, and said, these are my tables and these are my fields, it would hallucinate. It wouldn't understand what a field was if it had a weird naming convention or whatever. But this really gives it enough context. And again, FileMaker is all about context, right? It gives it the kind of context that it really needs to truly understand what you're doing and what you're building. And so I think this is one of the most important features that has been put into 2026 to enable us to really be successful. It sets us up for success, really. And so, again, I just look at, what the team is doing there and how AI forward they're thinking. And this is the kind of feature that I think really shows they understand what's needed for us to be set up for success. So I'm super excited about it.
Awesome. We've got a question from Tony White.
Oh, I'll jump in and read it. I caught a pause there. I dropped it in the chat. I'll just read it. Can you cause a field name to not appear in a sort or export? That's Rick tagging off your feature. Does it accept a null, I guess would be the implementation.
I don't know the answer off my top of my head, but you guys will tell us.
I'll take an answer from anyone. Okay, thanks.
But I mean, you guys will be experimenting with this stuff and seeing, because there's what we designed it to do and what you guys figure out it can actually do also, right? And typically, like web viewer object, designed so that the data in your database could drive the resources in the web viewer that was embedded in your and then people went to town with it. And before we ever did Design Surface, you had Digital Fusion with gorgeous new layouts because it was all Java and objects running in a web viewer object. We didn't do it and then it runs JavaScript for the JavaScript add-ons. We never thought of those things. It's just that we have the entire versatility of what modern web browsers can do embedded as an object in our platform. And so I think those are the choices we made over the years that opened up the platform, right? Before it was an island into itself. I mean, people would just go like this because it didn't use SQL. The reality is everything that we do, you can translate into SQL. There's certain things like, outer joins that, you can't do as well, but pretty much it's just, one of those things like, oh, it's not Microsoft, it's not SQL, it's not real. It's too cheap. It's not real. Right. And we always have salespeople going, I'll add a zero to your invoice if you want me to. Right. Because literally it can be seen as a toy because it's not expensive enough. These are interesting things. Right. So there's a lot of prejudice against something that's not something that's the standard. But with AI now, I mean, you can do all sorts of SQL-esque things. You can instantiate a relationship of data on the fly. You don't even need to have it on your relationship graph.
Yeah. Another kind of sleeper feature that's not AI related, because I know we're coming up on time, and I think this is valuable for people to know. If you haven't checked out any of the videos about the new FileMaker 2026 release, it's totally worth it. There's so much in this release. I mean, there's literally like 200 changes, over 200 changes.
There's about 115 feature enhancements or new features, and there's a little bit over 100 customer-facing issues that we knocked down. So 200 some odd things. So it's a pretty significant release, right?
Absolutely significant. So the feature that's another sleeper, but I think that's really important, is the new export field contents with PSOS. You want to talk about that a little bit? I think people might get excited about that one.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. As export field contents was not a server compatible script step. So if you use the thing to show the compatibility, it was grayed out for server. And all we did is make it possible to export. But the amounts of works around or shell scripts or robots that people did to get around that kind of stuff, now you can just sock it away. And then when you start putting it together with some of the things we put in over the years, like the file options and that sort of thing, it just opens up the door. It's another sleeper. It seems so simple. It's just check. Not even a checkbox. It's just now it's not grayed out, right? But think of the implications.
It's huge, I think. Yeah, absolutely. Or at least from the way that we use it, where I work. So, Elizabeth, I know we're up on the hour.
We have until 11:15 for this segment. So we still have 13 more minutes if you have a list or if anyone else has questions.
I'll open the door. I do have some things I can talk about.
I'm not surprised.
Just because I'm excited.
I know. And you've been this excited since May 5th at least. That's really when you kind of exploded, but it was before that.
It's before that because I started, doing when Cursor first came out, Cursor like version 2.2, I started using this stuff, with FileMaker on the back end, and I was kludging through, using the REST API, and the stuff I was able to do was just blowing my mind, and stuff that I, never thought I could do before, and I kept, trying to figure out how to kind of shift into the web development world instead, because I thought, okay, this is really where I need to be going. And I kept coming back to FileMaker because on the back end, it just was so much easier to work with FileMaker. And so as things have progressed, I've just gotten more and more excited about it. I don't see another question, but I think, one of the things that I've, in the last few FMDiSC meetings that we've had, that I've been, I don't know, I guess wanting to express is that if you're a creative person, and I tend to think most FileMaker developers are creative people by nature, you've got technicians, and this is true because I play music. This is true in music as well. You've got technicians who can read, music and, really, really well, but they aren't really good at jamming or improvising, right? And then you've got jazzers who don't read a lick of music, but who are, really good at just jamming and being creative, and the whole spectrum in between. And I think the same thing is true with developers, and FileMaker developers, I think, tend to lean toward the creative side. So for me, as somebody who identifies as a creative person by nature, if you haven't tried using AI for development, I think you're missing out on fun. Rick's talking about this is the most fun that he's had, or the most excited he's been in a long time. And I think that, it's just for me, I'm rejuvenated about development in general. It's so much fun. And I know that it can be a little bit what do you call it? Frustrating. I think Bob mentioned on with that app that he built, he had fun, but he also got frustrated sometimes because the AI would take him down a certain direction, and he had a hard time and he would struggle. And that's because you want to come out with a good product in the end. But it's like a puzzle, right? And you keep coming back to it and you figure it out. And then when you do figure it out, that dopamine hit is just massive and it's so much fun. And I think that what I would like to basically express or communicate to the community is, if you haven't tried it, you're missing out on fun. And I think that there's a lot of creative, um, for lack of better
Potential. Yeah.
potential there. Yeah,
Yeah.
potential and just enjoyment, really.
Yeah. I think it's interesting the way you describe it as the dopamine hit, because, when I came on the board and Bob interviewed me, I was like, nope, not doing AI. I'm just going to wait. And then I recently started, and I can't wait to get back to work.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get back to work.
There's this
It's
one of
it's
the
like it's like going back to when I first discovered FileMaker,
yes,
and it was
yes,
Yep.
so fun. Like, ooh, look at this thing I can do. Ooh, and it talks
yes,
back to me, and all of that. And which, I still love the puzzle work of everything that being a FileMaker developer is. But, I was running into barriers and walls, just, oh, I should probably learn how to write JavaScript, but, let me carve 12 hours out of my week
yeah,
to do that. And it's just taken all these barriers away. So now I can actually produce things, and my clients are very excited, and my deliverables are coming so fast, and I just want to keep getting at it. It's almost not even about the money anymore. It's just like, ooh, what's the next thing I can deliver?
yes, yeah. There's this new concept right now on the interwebs about AI vampires. Have you heard of this?
No.
So what's happening in the development world with AI and coding is that people are getting so sucked into the process of this agentic coding and this vibe coding that they're staying up way later and spending
Oh,
way more hours than they ever would, even though they're
Yep.
being very productive. They're just so sucked in, and so they're not sleeping. And so there's this new term of AI vampires because they're doing so much coding with their AI that
People
they're
are
not
even
sleeping.
taking vacations with their
Yes.
AI agent, right?
Yeah.
So
Jeremy Brown was saying that he had a friend who, uses Claude Code, and he was um, in line at Disney World working on a project with this Claude Code. Because this is one of the great things about Claude. If you don't know, Claude has a remote control feature where you literally open it on your
on your phone.
phone,
Yeah.
and it connects to whatever session you had on your desktop
I'm
and keeps
refusing to
going.
do that because
Oh,
I
it's so
already know
cool.
I'm just like, that's just a danger zone for me.
Yeah, it's not. It's so Heidi's talking about Claude Dispatch. It's different than Dispatch. This is specifically in Claude Code. It's called remote control. It's like a forward slash remote dash control or forward slash RC, and it allows you to remotely control that specific
Yeah,
Claude
she
Code
knows.
session.
She's going,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, there is a, and several of them are here. There is a group that is meeting for a couple of years. I think it's originally started with our original ETSs for AI that continue to meet, that is at the far cutting, bleeding edge
Right.
of what's going on with AI. And it's fascinating because I used to try to set in on that every Friday just to listen in, because it's all about what happened in the last week. Have you seen this? Have you seen that? Right. But invariably, when they start coming back and talking about what is the relationship to FileMaker, right? And, people like Mike Wallace here and Chris and Heidi are there. And it's interesting because they're in a lot of ways, they are so far ahead of even Claris. right? Because they're all master FileMaker developers that then understand the sphere and have then studied it and used it. And it's fascinating to see where they're going and then how they're applying. It's very seldom is it a conversation about FileMaker in and of itself, but more about, as someone who for 20 or 30 years has been building things for people, that FileMaker was my platform. What do I know that I can leverage? And so it's just I think I would be foolish not to be there every Friday listening to them talk.
So
But
where is that? Because I want to
Yeah, can you put
jump
a,
in.
yeah, let's like get that
I'll
in
let
the
the people
chat.
I will let the people that are on here decide. I don't know the rules for
Sure.
it.
Oh,
I just
okay.
Well, if you're taking new people, yeah.
they may have a desire. I don't know. I'll let them decide. I'm probably in trouble even for mentioning that it exists, but
We'll keep it here. Nobody else in the whole world will see it on the interwebs, right?
Did you see the ground rule I posted?
Yeah, no FUD. Yeah, I'm all about no FUD. Too much to look forward to. We don't need any more FUD. FUD is fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
yeah, I've seen that sort of begin to work its way out of, this, like it's interesting is, oh, it doesn't do this, it can't do that, it won't do that. And then you see less and less of it because, like I said, every time someone says that, it's almost like an invitation to AI to go, oh, really? Because it takes some human to say, it should do this. Here's a problem to solve, right? So I think it'll end up solving the problem all the way down the stack, and you will be able to put stuff together that you could deploy and rely on, right? But you've got to solve some problems of, the black box of, I don't want to unleash something that destroys my business, right? Because I just gave away all my customers' data and their credit cards, and they hacked into my system, and not only my system, but my customer system. There's awesome responsibility, but the
Yes.
second there's a problem, AI goes at solving it.
Yeah.
So Michael Wallace was kind enough to post that link in the chat.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, it's just a small group, and you're welcome to join. We do go off of FileMaker, as well, talk about news, talk about there's a lot of Hermes and OpenClaw and
Nice.
stuff like that talk and about our agents talking to each other and like that. We actually even have like a little chat room for our agents that talk to each other and like that. So.
That's pretty cool. So what are you using, Mike? Are you using Hermes or OpenClaw or both together?
I started off in OpenClaw and then I moved to Hermes, and I was way more productive with Hermes.
That's what I've
Built with
heard.
my agent, and I I used to talk to her. I'm on my phone and be out taking a walk, and I just give her commands, and she's actually the manager that manages all the other other agents or Claude or OpenAI's other things like that.
So are you using OpenAI as your subscription behind Hermes? Because I know that, Anthropic said no more.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, because when that happened, I used the Anthropic Agent SDK to build my own version
Mhm.
because I wanted to keep my Anthropic subscription and and be able to use it. And now they just are saying that even that's going to go to the API. So I'm gonna have to ditch my custom agent.
Yeah.
It's a bummer. But it sounds like, you're having success with OpenAI and Hermes, so I may have to do the switch. And I don't know if you guys saw, so more news that maybe we'll have in the Tech News Roundup, but with Mythos coming out, OpenAI is kind of afraid of losing customers, and so they're talking about slashing prices, which would be really great for us if they slash prices and we can use, more of 5.5, GPT 5.5.
Awesome. Well, we've got just about less than a minute left. I don't see any other questions in the chat. This has been a very energetic and exciting segment. And thank you both, Rick and Sol, for joining us and for just carrying this enthusiasm through the meeting and forward and out into the world. I appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you, Rick. It's been super fun. I don't get to do this kind of geeking out often enough, and I just have had a blast today.
Yeah, me too. Look, I was prepared to do a formal presentation, but very seldom do I get the opportunity just to off-road. And what that allows me to do is take my 30 plus years of experience and just unload it, right? And so it was very enjoyable. So thank you.
Likewise.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. That said, there are some formal presentations that you've done, right, Rick? And for everybody who hasn't seen them yet, it's worth it. Check it out. I think the one that you did with the community live is probably the main one. Would you say, Rick, or do you have one to point to?
I think you're the fifth this week. So there's the community live, but I was able to bring both FM Borough and Dig FM, which I did yesterday. And if they have recordings, I have a superset of a deck that has a little bit more detail. I wasn't able to demo like Douglas did, but I have screenshots and that sort of thing. So if they're a recording, then of course we jumped on FM Train TV after the community live last Tuesday, and so there's an hour of sort of Q&A from Rich's audience, and those things are out on YouTube.
So it looks like Eric Matthews posted
Yeah,
a
he
YouTube
posted
link.
it. Yeah.
Eric, is that the Dig FM session?
Eric, you're muted.
Correct.
Okay,
Wonderful.
excellent.
Thank you for
Thank you.
posting that, Eric.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Let me just add that has a bonus extra because Rick did a special bonus extra at the top, which was if you didn't hear it earlier, you should just watch that. It's unique.
Yeah,
It's
just like what FileMaker is all about.
It was Eric requested that there be a beginner introduction for students that Eric is working into the community.
Nice.
So
really nice.
It's unique of all the presentations.
Awesome.
Excellent.
All right. Well, now it is time for our featured monthly segment, Tech News Roundup, with Chris Moyer.
Greetings. Let me share my screen. Can everyone see this?
Looks great.
Okay, let's let it rip. Okay, welcome to the June 2026 version of the Tech News Roundup. Starting off, May 19th, it seems like a long time ago now. Anyway, Google had their I/O event, and they started off with a bunch of speeds and feeds and just astonishing numbers. So the first one was, and this is Google, they have Gemini, they have their own TPUs, they're vertically integrated, they have their own models. And so they were talking about how much traffic they're getting across their platform. So in May 2024, it was 9.7 trillion tokens. And I believe that was monthly. And now they're doing 3.2 quadrillion tokens 2 years later. On the tokens per minute, it's 19 billion now. It used to be in the single digits not that long ago. Google Cloud, they have more than 375 customers, each processing a trillion tokens. They have 1 billion users of AI-enabled products, and of those, these 5 are 3 billion users. And then they announced the AI-assisted search. And so they have this, and they're like, people love it. And then immediately afterwards, DuckDuckGo's AI-free search saw a huge spike in traffic. So not everybody loved it, apparently. And so I just thought that was an interesting data point. And then Anthropic shifted their enterprise billing to token-based pricing. And as a result, Microsoft canceled their internal Anthropic licenses. We got Amazon scrapping their internal leaderboard over token maxing. And who else? Uber, a ton of people were abandoning ships. I thought there were some interesting takeaways from that. One is, these both Anthropic and OpenAI have filed for their IPOs. It is in their financial best interest to make sure that they showed good revenue, strong revenue numbers prior to the IPO. And they did. They goosed their revenue. I think Anthropic became profitable in the month of May. And as a result, all these people are like, woo, too expensive, and they're ditching. And so, one takeaway is that these frontier models don't have the pricing power that they thought they did. And so now, in the wake of the backlash, now they're talking about cutting prices again. So it's interesting to see that there's real price sensitivity for these services. And that makes for a muddy picture as to what the path to profitability is for those frontier models. Anyway, this news uh, tidbit popped up last month. Um, as of now, bots have more internet traffic than human beings do on the internet. So this is, I think it was from Cloudflare, yeah. And so bot traffic has exceeded human stuff. And now this isn't just like AI agent bots or anything like that. There's all sorts of flavors of bots on there. So there's Google's search engine crawler and uh, advertising and marketing bots and SEO bots and things like that. But AI crawler here, AI crawler here, AI search here, AI assistant here. So these did not used to be on the radar. And so AI bots in particular are on the rise. So it's not like this is all AI bot traffic, but they're definitely showing up on the radar these days. So another interesting data point. Apple had their WWDC. Today's the last day of it. It started, what, 2 days ago? Yeah, I think 2 days ago. The big headline, and I've seen some reactions to it, is like, well, that was boring. Nothing new there. In years past, sometimes Apple has announced new hardware platforms that the developers need to get access to take advantage of the new development tools. That's not the case this year. Whatever gear you have, you can work on now. But the big headlines were Siri AI, Google Gemini deal, the Google private cloud. Um, and I have a link to a YouTube video there, and that's by he's an AI commentator named Nate B. Jones. Some of you may already follow him on YouTube. He also has a Substack that he publishes, and he has a great take, which is that most of the chatter has been about AI in the business place, AI for coding or what, business workflows can we put into AI? And it's sort of ignoring consumer AI. So you have Apple, who has an installed base of over 2.5 billion devices across iOS and macOS. That translates into about 1.5 to 1.7 billion unique customers. And Nate's thesis, is that for consumer AI, this distribution is what matters. And Apple owns that. They have huge distribution. And so, not unlike Google, they want to have AI permeate, all the apps and the ecosystems across iOS and macOS. And so, what that looks like is you have, some of these announcements were about Apple Intelligence and App Intents, where you can fully integrate an app to apps to Spotlight, the action button, configurability with interactive widgets, the control center, custom actions for Pencil Pro. And I don't know if any of you have sort of taken a close look at App Intents. It essentially makes an application on either iOS or macOS uh, fairly similar to an MCP server. You're basically saying these actions are discoverable in Spotlight or what have you. And so, from a variety of places that I just rattled off in the operating system, your app can be interacted with, not unlike an MCP server gives you access to Intuit or FileMaker or what have you. So it's just sort of an interesting take about AI in the consumer landscape, and Apple has a huge opportunity here. And it looks like, yeah, Apple missed the boat on commercial AI, but they haven't missed the boat. So just interesting perspective, worth giving that a watch. As it was made, I didn't even have a slide in here for Fable 5, which I thought was hilarious. But since Saul mentioned, like, whoops, I better mention at least that. Um, so Cloud Mythos it wasn't released, but it was out a few months ago, and then they discovered it was a frightening cybersecurity risk. It could hack anything and did hack anything. It hacked the TCP/IP stack, which was thought to be bulletproof, and it found something that was sitting in there for 27 years. Um, so some people, it's in very limited release to, the special people, I guess, and certainly like the cyber agencies and the US government. China has requested access to it, and I believe is still denied. They were denied initially. And then Cloud Fable 5 is Mythos with guardrails on it. And you've probably heard me mention Pliny the Liberator. He's on X, formerly Twitter, and his hobby is jailbreaking LLMs. And he's already jailbroken Fable 5, I think, within the first day of access to it. So those guardrails are permeable, let's just say that. This was just an interesting thing that I came across that I hadn't been really aware of, and I thought, oh, interesting factoid, I'll share. So, when chips are made, like the M1 chips or what have you, Apple Silicon, um, they can be functional but not fully pass the spec for testing. So if they're supposed to have, I don't know, 8 cores back in the day, and 7 are good but one's bad, they don't throw that chip out. What they have been doing is this process known as chip binning. They can reuse faulty chips for lower powered products. So, and there's just been a report out for, how this works. And so, in the MacBook Air, this was in 2020. So 6 years ago, this happened, just to give you an example of how it worked in years gone by. So the difference between the MacBook Air with the 999 base model and the 1249 higher end version. The higher one has an 8-core GPU. That was a chip that fully passed all its quality checks. And the base model only has a 7-core one. So it's basically a binned chip that is still functional, but didn't have all full 8 cores working. And so the takeaway is they didn't make a special version of the chip. These are the sort of the seconds, if you will, to do that. And so using this chip binning in lower powered devices or lower demand devices has saved Apple hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. And it's just interesting that this is a thing. Apple's not the only one who does this. Anyone who makes chips will do this. But here's different products that have used binned chips in lower end versions. I thought this example at the bottom here was that when they were making the A4 chips that pulled too much power, they don't work for a smartphone or for an iPad or something like that, but they work just fine for an Apple TV that had plug-in power. So it's like, great, let's use them for the Apple TV. So just an interesting slice of life of how the industry works. Meta has been up to no good, sort of. They have quietly embedded face recognition technology for their smart glasses into an app that has already been downloaded to, I think, 50 million times. A bunch, a whole bunch. So, code that was discreetly added to Meta's AI app over several updates this year uh, shows a name feature called internally name tag, and it identifies people captured by the glasses camera, and when activated, alerts the wearer when it recognizes someone. Hey, that's Fred Flintstone over there. Um, and it's supposed to be inert. I think Meta has publicly said, yeah, we aren't doing that. And there it is. It's in there. They had begun shipping face recognition code to users' phones while publicly describing it as something they were still thinking through. Um, in April, Meta said that if they were to utilize face recognition, it wouldn't be rolled out without first taking a very thoughtful approach, but it sure seems to be out. And Wired magazine found that as early as January, core components of the system were already integrated into the software distributed to millions and millions of people. So take that for what it's worth. McKinsey. So McKinsey, the consulting company, has an internal AI platform with a chatbot. It's named Lily. And a red teaming company called Codewell has an autonomous offensive agent to basically do pen testing on your app security. And it took them all of 2 hours from starting their red team raid that they achieved full read and write access to the entire production database. We're able to access 46.5 million chat messages about strategy, mergers and acquisition, client engagements, all in plain text, along with almost 750,000 files containing confidential client data. They got access to 57,000 user accounts, a bunch of stuff. So they, of course, reported this. McKinsey has patched it, but it's just interesting that something you thought was in decent shape is, in fact, very porous. Sad news on the GoPro front. On June 1, they shared an updated stock market filing warning of substantial doubt about the company's ability to continue. They were all the rage not so long ago, and now it looks like they're on the rocks. They have shared that they are considering a potential sale. They had a 93.5 million net loss for 2025 and 432 million loss in 2024. So, given the recent increases in memory prices, 110 increase to memory hardware costs, reduced supply from their suppliers during the AI data crisis, they are expecting further softness in sales for this year. So it seems they're um, on their deathbed, as it were. NASA, they had some leaks in the space station, and they were concerned enough about it that NASA told their astronauts to get into they basically got into their capsule that was attached to the space station to make sure that they didn't have a problem, but they were able to fix it. Um, and this is a first. Astronauts have never had to evacuate the ISS in its 27-year history. So the air leak rate, they had noticed a slow leak for a while, and the leak increased, doubled on Friday, which got everybody concerned, and they eventually did fix it though. So the abandoned ship has been reversed. Tungsten, I think last month or the month before, I talked about how helium was a casualty of the war with Iran, and apparently now tungsten is in a supply chain constraint, mostly because it's heavily used in weapon system, and a lot of weapon systems have been used. So now we're down on our tungsten, and the U.S. doesn't really produce any tungsten. I believe Canada does. Um, Vietnam, China is the world's #1 producer. Vietnam is a distant second, and we don't produce any. So, yay, no tungsten. And then this one I just couldn't resist. It's not really tech news, but Washtenaw College, Community College, is a community college in Ann Arbor, right next to University of Michigan. So, uh, one of our, I'm in Michigan, so this is one of my Michigan State people, uh, not MSU, but in the state. This woman won, and I didn't even know this was a thing. It's called the World Skills Competition. So this woman beat everybody in the country and is now our U.S. representative to the World Skills Championship in Shanghai in September, I believe it is. So she won the U.S. Weld Trials in Huntsville, Alabama earlier this year and kicked everybody's ass. So good for her. And then in health news, I always like to get a health news in here, and there is science here. There was a scientific study. For decades, nutrition textbooks have told clinicians and patients that passing gas 5 to 20 times a day is the normal range, but There was very limited evidence for this, so few studies have actually directly measured how often healthy people actually do pass gas. And there was an evidence gap, and the researchers at Australia's Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization set out to leap into the breach, so to speak. And their findings were that most people pass gas between 2 and 7 times a day. So the previous norm was overstated. Science says so, at least for Australia. So that was published in the JAMA Network Open. And that is the mostly tech news for June.
Thanks, Chris. I have a question about the world skills.
Yeah.
What are the world skills? What did this woman do that she
She's
beat
a welder. So
She's
it
a
was
welder?
a welding competition. Yeah. She beat everybody. She's the first woman ever to win the whole thing in the US, and she's our representative to China, to the World Championships.
He's
Brilliant.
the one from that World War II poster, I think.
She's looking
Yes.
that way. I mean, she's definitely modeling after that, right? In that
Yes, she
left,
looks very badass.
right? Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, I figured out how to make these Mentimeter polls work. So there are links in the chat. And I also will share this screen just so we can see it up here. All right. These are our links for the Mentimeter polls. Please go and visit them. We're going to go into breakout rooms. And I think between Chris and Rick and Sol, we have gobs of stuff to talk about. So please go ahead and join a breakout room. This is going to be your choice.
Elizabeth, those two links are the same.
Oopsie. Thanks, Roman. I'll fix that. I don't think they are in the chat, which is probably a better place to go and get them. But I'll check. Thanks, Roman.
Yeah, they were the same in the chat too.
Blast. All right. Well, I'll correct that because I really want to hear what you guys have to say, and so do our next two presenters.
The first slide that you had up with the numbers on it worked for me.
Great. All right. Breakout rooms. Have fun. Excellent. I hope everyone had a fun time in breakout rooms, energetic discussions. Please mute yourselves if you are not muted. Thank you. Okay. I was scrolling through the chat to see if there were any newcomers here. I didn't find anyone, so this is going to be the last few seconds where anyone who's new wants to introduce yourselves to the group, step up, raise your hand. I know there's some folks on here from Full Access, and I really encourage you to go and check out the chat because Eric Matthews posted a session that they're hosting with 3 heavyweights. It's Jesse Barnum, Christian Schmidt, and Clay Meckel. I mean, that's a killer session. So if y'all want to go up to the Redwoods in August and see those 3 heavyweights telling you some really cool stuff, you can go to Full Access and register. You guys still have your registration going on.
Yes.
Eric Matthews, you can see in his background, he's got a little QR code there with a coupon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually Los Altos, kind of like grassy oak forest area, but yes.
Yeah,
pretty close, not too far from.
Well, I guess depending on how you get up to the hill, you
Yeah.
might have to go through some redwood forests.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you got on the sandhill side there, which is really nice. It's still beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Any time spent in the Santa Cruz Mountains is good for one's soul, I think. All right, let's just check out here, make sure I'm not missing anybody. 1 second. Okay. Well, I figured out the problem with the Mentimeter polls. I was trying to trick Mentimeter by logging in from 2 different logins, and it went, nope, we know who you are. So I have put the polls into Zoom. It has been launched. Hopefully those will show up for y'all. I'm seeing them. Oh, look at people are chiming in. That's lovely. Okay. I've got a few more minutes. I'm waiting on Susan Fennema. We've got Joe in here. Anybody else have any other announcements? Quiet group today. Oh, thank you for reposting that, Eric. Okay. Well, our next guests, who will be joining us shortly, have written a book together. And I've posted a link to that book in the chat. You can check it out if you want to buy it. Joe, do you want to come in and say hi to everyone while we're waiting for Susan to join us?
Sure. Hello, everybody.
Hi. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, thank you.
How's the weather in South Carolina?
It is almost 94 degrees and about as humid as it could be. So it is officially summer.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Wow. Are you close to the sea where you're at?
Now we're on the mountainside of the state. So
You're a little
yeah,
closer to like Tennessee.
yeah, we're closer to Tennessee. Yeah.
Nice.
About 3 hours from the beach.
Oh, that's a long drive if you want to go to the beach. That's a day trip.
It's a day trip.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What kind of elevation is that? Because we were having Elizabeth and I were having a conversation earlier about Medellin, Colombia, which is like in a at a latitude that is tropical, but at an altitude that makes it, they call Medellin the city of the eternal spring because it's between 70 and 74 degrees all year long. So is there a place somewhere up in the hills there where it stays, temperate all the time?
Um, I've not found it. So I would like to find that place. Now, if you do get further up, if you get up into the mountains, there's a lake called Lake Jocaste. And it's known for its cool, crystal clear waters. It's one of those towns that the government flooded back in the 70s to have a reservoir, and they use it for diving and things like that. But it's like this beautiful, crystal clear water that is like perfect temperature around.
Wonderful. All right, so Susan has joined us. Susan, you want to say hi quick?
Hi, y'all.
Okay, great. She's working. So here we go. Thank you, everyone, for your patience with the technology. Our next guests are pillars of the FileMaker community, the types of people who need no introduction. They wrote a book together called Your Business is Holding You Hostage. Stop being the business. Let it run without you. It's available on Amazon, and the link is in the chat. The book itself is a straightforward self-help book offering advice to help give business owners the precious gift of time and also to help create real saleable value should you be such a one who is considering selling your business. Now, if you're a regular attendee at FMDiSC, you might have attended a meeting in the last half of 2025 where our colleague Matt DeVar testified that when he was selling AppWorks, the only real saleable value he had in that business was in the processes that were implemented to keep things rolling. It wasn't the value of the code. It wasn't the value of the contacts. So that's a very sobering thought. Now, Susan, if you don't already know, Susan Fennema is a clutter-kicking, disorder-fighting maven by nature, and we're going to learn a little bit more about her and what she does. But for now, Susan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the group?
Sure. Howdy, y'all. I'm based in McKinney, Texas, which is north of Dallas. Since I grew up in Houston, I feel my disdain for Dallas deserves acknowledgement. I am an Oilers fan to this day, love you blue till the day I die, which should make it clear that I'm most definitely not a Cowboys fan. My husband Craig takes vibration measurements on enormous sorting machines for a living, which sounds totally made up, but is very real and apparently requires a high degree of expertise. Our dog Shelby is 11. He's named after the race car driver Carroll Shelby, not the car. Carroll or Craig decided Shelby, who is a boy, was the much more manly of the two names of the choices. After starting with a formal living room in the middle of our house that no one ever went into, we flipped it to a game room. pool table, dartboard, kegerator bar, wine fridge, an additional wine rack because apparently one wine storage isn't enough. You don't want to run out. And 3 TVs for watching college football. In the summer, you'll find me floating in the pool, which is the correct way to spend a Texas summer. I'm a third generation Aggie, which means I have a lifetime of practicing grasping defeat from the jaws of victory and being almost good enough. I try harder, like Avis. When I'm not cooking multi-course dinners with wine pairings, I'm binge watching trash TV, and both are very valid life choices. I regret nothing. And thanks for having me.
Wow, I'm excited about that game room. Does it come with a guest room? Because I might have to visit.
There are a couple guest rooms here too. Yeah.
All right. So, Susan, to be clear, you are not a FileMaker developer,
Absolutely not.
but you are very FileMaker friendly.
Yes.
And go ahead.
I first used FileMaker in 1988.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So you've been there since the beginning.
I've been around for a while.
Right. So 10 years ago, you founded your business Beyond the Chaos, a consulting firm specializing in scalable operations and project management, specifically targeting small businesses.
Yep.
Oh, happy anniversary, by the way, 10 years.
Thank you. We just had a party this weekend. Joe flew in. It was great.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Well, congratulations on beating the odds. That's really great. So you just told us you told us you've been involved with FileMaker since 1988, but you didn't really say how.
So when I first started, I was just a user. I worked for an Apple certified consultant, and so we used it in the business. We built invoices, POs, that kind of thing. I went to a couple of companies. I don't know if we had it. I went to an ad agency in the early 2000s, and Molly Connolly actually built our tool for us to run the agency. I worked really closely with Molly for 10 years growing. She did all the work, but we developed it together. And then when I left there, Molly connected me up with a platinum partner, and I went to work for them as an ops and project manager.
Wow. So what made you want to start your own company?
When I went to look for a job in 2016 after being virtual for 6 years, I was like, I'm never getting in a car to drive in traffic again. I'm not going to somebody's office. I'm not doing it. And the second part was because of what I did, it always took a long time to earn the trust of a small business owner. And what I did requires a lot of trust. What I do now requires that trust. It's so interesting to me that I've learned that when you say you're a consultant, people trust you instantly. But when they hire you as an employee, oh no, we got to keep you at arm's length for a while, right?
That's a funny phenomenon. Yeah, I've noticed that.
So I decided I'm not going to take a job. I'm going to make my own. Let's go serve more business owners. Let's, go to the masses instead of working one at a time.
Right. And so in the book you write, I was the sole employee. Every aspect of the company, from client consultations and process design to marketing, sales, administrative tasks fell on my shoulders. That epiphany came to you within 6 months of starting Beyond the Chaos. And you write that you resolved to hire a project manager. Now, was that hiring out of necessity, or was that part of your plan all along?
It was not part of my plan. I thought, oh, let's go be a solo. It'll be so much better than messing with all of the, stuff you have to HR, all that stuff. But man, I learned real fast that I didn't want to be glued to my chair. And I wanted to lead people. And I totally missed that aspect of what I was doing on my own. So starting to build a team was definitely an afterthought, but one of the things I'm very glad I did. It also helps us serve more people than I can serve by myself.
Sure. And then, so in that process, you're also, as you're building Beyond the Chaos, were you also documenting all of your processes and all of that stuff going along as you built Beyond the Chaos and brought on more clients to do the same thing with them?
Oh, for sure. We eat our own dog food. I mean, yesterday afternoon, I was reevaluating our sales process and figuring out how to automate parts of it. So we're always looking at streamlining and simplifying.
Cool. So how did you meet Joe Scarpetta?
Oh, Joe and I were talking about this last weekend. I don't even know. It had to have been at a DevCon.
Had to be
Maybe in 2010, you think?
somewhere. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a seasoned traveler, and this is fairly recently new in the last 5 to 10 years. I'm the kind of guy who I can plan a beach trip, and my wife will have her suitcase packed before I can finish buying the tickets. But the traveling has really allowed me to do a lot more of the photography. I love photography. I always have my entire life. There were some courses I took in college, and it's just kind of been a thing that's followed me. So I get to do landscape and architectural stuff, but it lets me shut off from all the normal day to day.
Nice.
In addition to that, Lee and I own an art business together. I've done stained glass on and off for about 40 years.
Oh yeah, I remember. I think I've seen some Christmas ornaments that you made.
Yes, you may have seen some of that. And we did a huge
Yeah.
show this past fall. And so it's named Crazy Eye Art and Design, and it's really named after her dog Binky, which I wish I had her with me right now. She's this white Chihuahua with these giant bug eyes. Susan's met her. I mean, like they almost need to be insured by Lloyd's of London. But she's just like a cartoon character.
That's funny. All right.
So yeah, it's been part of my life for like 40 years going to glass. So it gives me a chance to, switch brains at the end of the day or for the season or whatever I choose to do. I mean, I don't typically work in the normal business on Friday. I work in the glass business on Fridays now. So it's let me flip. And that'll be all stuff we talk about in a minute. But Leanne's an artist, and sure, her medium's always been pastels, but she loves doing fused glass. So that's been her thing for the last 5-6 years.
Nice. So Joe, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. We finish.
Okay. But you yourself, you are a FileMaker developer.
Yes.
And a certified FileMaker trainer.
Yes.
Yes. And a Claris partner.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're in the soup, right? And
Yes.
your firm, the Scarpetta Group, has twice won the Claris FileMaker Award for Excellence in Design.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And you've been your business has been around how many years?
I think we're about 18, but I've been on my own for 21.
18 years, 2 awards, partner status. Those all seem like signs of and symptoms of a really healthy business from where I'm standing. So I have 2 questions for you. One, what were you giving up or sacrificing while you were building your business?
I was building it. I was giving up family. I was giving up self-care. So there's a lot of different things, especially as you get further into that. I mean, the self-care tends to go, do I go to the gym or do I finish the project? So there's been a lot of challenges there. Do I go sit downstairs and have dinner, or do I take this meeting to get the next job? So I mean, there's a lot of difficult decisions you need to make when you're starting out, because the same thing Susan said, I started out, my intent was to be a solo, and it didn't work out that way.
Yeah. So on our polls, we asked people to declare who they are, a business owner, an employee, a mix of the two, a little bit of all 3. It looks like we have a preponderance of business owners here, maybe a few independent contractors after that, and then, everyone else is kind of a mix. So just so we know kind of who we're talking to. The next question I want to ask you, Joe, is when did you notice things started not working in your business? Like, what was the first sign for you that something was not right?
When Leanne and I got married in 2012, I had to move. I moved my office out of the house into a small office. And around that time, my brother had moved down here and he was working for me. And I had a couple people working there. And around there was when the growth, when you start that, people start to find out there's a new FileMaker company in the state and the region where there really hasn't been anything. You get this explosive growth. And you lose a customer or two at that point because you can't maintain what you're doing. And a lot of that had to do, with not knowing all the things you don't know. You think you know everything going in to run a business, but you don't know what you don't know. And those were the challenges. And it was, there were no processes. It was, this is what we're doing today. And those kinds of things. And it was a real small team. And it was difficult at those times, but it was growing, and it was growing substantially, but it was just trying to muddle through the day to day and figure it out.
Right. So while you had your eye on the growth and trying to, be the rainmaker for your team, was there another person pointing out, hey, Joe, I think we got to work on this, and, just adding more to your plate by asking questions or pointing out potential problems? Or did you just wake up one day and go, I need a fix, calling Susan?
I can't remember how it came about, but yes, something to that aspect happened. I don't know if it was because I did a Tony Robbins event or how that worked, but it was one point, it was like, I need help. And Susan and I connected again at that point, and she did project management for us for years. And one of the first projects then became I'm not going to be a project manager unless you do the processes, because I don't know what we're doing here. So that's
So there
really
you go. That just started it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you guys went through that process. I believe you told me it took about a year of just really hard focused work.
It was a lot of me kicking and screaming sometimes, like, why do I need to write that down? It's like, I know what that is. And that was the whole point, is I needed to write that down so someone else knew what that was. But there was a lot of back and forth and refining. And it was like, why are you doing it like that? Do it like this, or let's get rid of that. Let's not do that. So it's really been a large undertaking at that time, but it's, made it much simpler than now today.
And so if you can just kind of take yourself back to that point when you were trying to run the business and write the processes that Susan, your trusted advisor, is asking you to do, and this and that, like, can you recall like some kind of feeling you had about that?
There's a lot of anxiety in that, because in some ways you feel like when you start to document everything, in some ways you've given up control. But you're providing clarity then for everybody else. So it's a transition, and it's a change in mindset at that point, because I went into this with a developer brain, not a business owner brain. And you've got to make that transition at some point if you want to continue to grow.
Wow, that's interesting. So one of the things I found fascinating about the book, which is a very thorough exploration of how to recognize owner dependence, what it looks like, what you can do to try to fix it. There's all kinds of remedies in the book. But one of the things I found really fascinating is this discussion of the emotional barriers to freeing oneself from owner dependence. And, emotional doesn't seem like a business topic, right? So I'd like to dive in deeper there. And I'm going to share a screen that is the emotional barriers to freedom from your business. And we also asked our attendees some questions. One, how they feel about their business. 40% of the people feel that being in control is comfortable. Yeah. And that's always, they always feel that being in control is comfortable. About 60% of the people fear sometimes becoming unnecessary. 40% of the people say, sometimes I feel it's just easier to do it myself. Yeah, about a third of the folks feel relief when their to-do list is clear. And then on the guilty about working less, relying on others, looks like about a third of the people say never, a third of the people say sometimes. That's not terrible. I think that's pretty good. And then the last one, I wear my badge, my hustle like a badge of honor. We got almost half of the people saying, yeah, sometimes. So let's dive into this. Which of these were ones that you experienced more or less?
All of them at some point. I mean, the giving up the control. So the hardest part about giving up the control is actually finding the right people to put in place. that you can just step back and know things are going to happen. And that's really the biggest one. You've got to know that when you're away, or if you're not available, that everything can just kind of happen the way it's supposed to. Going back to, you know, building the processes and things like that. No one can do it like me is another tough one, because it's like, you know, you built this, it's I write the code this way, I do things like this is that. It's not necessarily giving up control in those situations for that. It's learning that you need to train your people and give them the processes and the tools to go through and then continue on with what you want your legacy to be.
Mm. Mm-hmm. So Susan, let's pivot back to you. You were working as a project manager for Scarpetta, and what was the first thing you noticed needed some attention?
We had an unclarity of what the deliverable was supposed to be. So, how do you know when you're done if it is unclear from the beginning what you're delivering? And
Yeah.
so, without those kinds of things in place, you're shooting at random targets. And so, being able to streamline that and get that time, budget, and scope under control got everybody on the same page of, including the client, of moving in the right direction to be more effective in accomplishing the goals that you want, as opposed to, okay, I guess there's always more and nothing ever being done, you know? So
Yeah.
we tackled a lot of that for sure.
I imagine that what you just described is a very common problem.
It's common in all industries, actually. And some people don't understand that good outcomes start not with a good project manager, not with a good process. It all starts with a great proposal.
Yeah.
What are you and your customer agreeing to up front? And how are you delivering that? And setting the expectation, just like setting it with your employees. It's the same thing.
So do you build in discovery time for that, or how do you do that? Because that is time, and really what we're selling is our time, right? Yes, it's our expertise and all of that, but it seems to me like the planning and architecture part of the job gets overlooked a lot, or the discovery phase gets overlooked. I know people on the call, like Bob Shockey, for example, he talks about how he always builds in a discovery budget, and you know, it's a great thing to have, but sometimes, you know, clients push back.
We build it into ours even, and we're not doing software development. But you know, it must be the only industry in the world that thinks without a plan, you're going to achieve something. I mean, you don't go build a building without having a drawing of what it's supposed to look like at the end.
Right.
And sometimes you can just talk to your clients in that standpoint of, look, we can just start building stuff if you'd like, but it is going to take more time. It is going to cost more money, and it might never get finished. If we actually take the time and you pay, please pay for developing that structure and architecture. Now you're going to get what you expect, and we can get you there faster because we can start with an MVP. We don't have to start with the complete deliverable.
Right. Yeah, David just posted in the chat, we're both architects and carpenters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, when did you notice things like the tide shift? When did the boat start turning around, Joe? And when did you start seeing the improvements that you were working so hard to implement actually taking hold?
Probably multiple different times. Probably the biggest was when I took the first vacation, and that's in the book. I had Susan and her team handle payroll. I had my team, this is where everybody's calls going to lose their mind. I had my team log me out of Google, so I didn't have access to anything except the bank account. And I hopped on a plane with Leanne and we flew to the Maldives, and we were gone for 3 weeks. I got one text, and I got one text in that time. The whole story's in there, but I got one text from Susan's team just because they saw something, they were concerned with COVID coming back around that time frame. But outside of that, just that really gave me the assurance that, working with Susan, that we got the processes in place. I was able to really kind of step back. We're in a really good place with everything. Projects happened, clients got billed, clients paid, payroll ran. It was, just affirmation that things were still going. And when I came back, it was probably the second chunk of affirmation was that I didn't have 3 weeks worth of work to catch up on. I had a dozen things that I needed to respond to because everything was handled. I think even Danielle read my email while I was gone. I think we went to that extreme. So everything was just handled, and it was great.
Huh, that's amazing. Yeah.
But also notice that didn't happen overnight, right? We started working together in 2017, about mid 2017. So it took a while to get there. And I'm all for unplugged vacations, but please don't take a 3-week unplugged vacation without a plan. You will break your business. You want to make sure that you have some structure in place and maybe build up to it a little bit too.
Right. And after a solid year of really just putting your heads down and working hard and writing all the processes, in that process, Joe, what was the hardest thing operationally for you to let go of?
Honestly, I can't remember right now, but I mean, so it's probably still some of the stuff I'm hanging on to. Like, I don't let go of finance and those things. Those are still things. The finance, the marketing, and the sales, I still kind of handle. But a lot, like Beth runs the day-to-day stuff. So it's like on the day-to-day basis, I'm not involved in day-to-day decisions anymore. We're bringing new things in, and you probably just saw an announcement. We just hired this really great guy, Jules, to manage projects. So we brought somebody in, instead of having 2 PMs, we have 1 PM now. So he's going to take over the whole scheme of things. So we're making these little incremental shifts to just keep continuous improvement now.
Continuous improvement is such a great way to look at it because we didn't write all of Joe's processes in 2017. We are still revising. They are still revising today because they evolve and grow as you learn and as your company grows and as technology evolves and changes, that they become living, breathing parts of your organization. So I think that's important too, is that continual improvement makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, and just like FileMaker existing since the 80s, Kaizen, that continuous improvement mantra that came over from overseas still works. Yeah, continuous improvement. Susan, what's the most common resistance you come up against when trying to help business owners in this situation free themselves from the dependence of their business?
It is actually the emotional side. It's fear. It's fear that if I let this go, it won't get done right. We will lose clients. We will upset people. It won't get done the way I want it done. But that's the whole point, is that if you are documenting what you expect, it can. If probably it's not going to get done the exact same way you would do it, but it will be good enough, and good enough is not a bad word in that thing. It is good enough. Perfectionism will kill you. And that's the other thing I run into is the perfectionism that is hard to fight, because most of the people that started their businesses started because you're great at your job. You're great at being a FileMaker developer and you're fantastically perfect at it. Well, the people that work for you probably aren't, and that's okay. They're good enough.
And so that goes back to faith in the team, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so much of this, I'm an independent contractor. I have my own business, but I've always been very clear that I'm just going to be a one-woman show. I don't want employees or anything like that. So as I'm reading this book and I'm going through going, yep, that sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. Just from the perspective of being an employee in some of these companies where things had gotten stuck, or the business owner was just too overwhelmed with all the things that he was managing, that to bring in, hey, we could improve processes was just one more thing and pushing him over the tipping point. So I had a lot of head nodding in that respect, but I also had a lot of head nodding for some of my clients who are like, you need this book, but you don't have time to read it. So what's the difference between an owner who successfully breaks free and one who stays enslaved to the business?
I think the big difference is their mindset, for sure. We've worked with several people who they just give it away, and like they don't want to do it anymore. And Joe, you're at that point right now. He doesn't want to do any of the operational stuff in his business. And by letting that go, you're able to focus on bigger things. And so I think that area is really where that would apply the most.
I mean, mindset shift is it's so hard. How do you like how do you go about getting people to turn the mirror around on themselves and start recognizing, I need to change my mind?
Well, in Joe's case, you actually worked with um, a coach, right?
Yeah, I worked with a couple of coaches
To
over the
kind of
years.
help you work through that. That is our area of expertise. We are not therapists. We are not coaches. We are consultants. We're going to tell you what to do. We're not going to bring you around to your way of thought or our way of thought. But that transition is so important because it's almost that shift from I'm an employee of my own business to I am building something and driving the success of my business. I'm going to set the tone of how my business is going to affect the world and its people, as opposed to I'm going to be an employee in it.
Uh,
Well, listen, the other part of that mind shifts is as well is do you want a job or do you want to be a business owner?
Yeah.
right.
That's when the real shift starts to occur because for me, I get frustrated when I have to go do something, even if I'm just doing it to help out somebody because they don't have enough time. It's like, I don't want to do that again because I've given it away. Don't give it back. You keep that now. Um, so it's now that I free things up, I don't want them back. I want more freedom because now I'm looking at the business as, our goal is to serve and do the best we can for everyone. But at the same time, I'm looking at it as when I step back, it still runs. My team's got it taken care of. I still own it. I have an additional retirement plan. And that's where, some of this gets missed and some of the things. Like I sat in a conference and there was another developer in there years ago, and he sat there and he was just a solo and he was like, somebody asked a question, Susan, you were there, what are you going to do when your business, what are you going to do when your business or if you pass on or if you would decide to retire, whatever, I'm just going to close the doors. What? You could
I mean,
sell it?
that's a super important question.
Yeah.
And it's a question that I've actually brought up with a couple of my clients who are, one man shows, one woman shows, like, hey, what's your succession plan? Because there's, 50 employees here. What are you going to do? What happens when you go away for whatever reason? So that's a really important question. In the letting go of things, what was the first thing you remember, Joe, letting go of?
I mean, it was the project management. That was the first thing. Um, my brother's leading, my brother leads and handles all of the major coding processes. So he's the tech lead, he handles all of that. So I mean, for him to have stepped in and take that stuff over, that was a huge undertaking for me to let that go. And now it's kind of now I still do coding, but it's when I choose without a deadline. Because Susan understands trying to reel me in. Um, so
Well, I
that,
think that reeling in part, I mean, that's part of the creative mind. I think, given the audience we have here, which is people who are very creative and came to FileMaker because it allows you to be that person who can sit in the middle and look at all the things, right? So,
Right.
being in the control center of your business, it's got to be hard. So you gave up project management. That felt good,
Well,
scary.
it's all a little scary at first, but then when you start to see it work and you feel like you have the right person running it and it just continues to work, you just kind of get these little moments of, you get those aha moments. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Mhm.
But then, our brains are weird. They go worry about something else twice as much. So,
Right.
so then you find that other piece to hand off and you whittle it down to, it's like, all right, what are all the things I created a list of all the things I love to do at one point. I think, Susan, you had me do this, all the things I love to do and all the things I don't want to do. And that was the list that it's like, okay, of the things I don't want to do, there were several things in there that I had to still do, but it was working through those so we could push those off. And
Is
that was
that That's awesome. Susan, is that a list you present often to, or is that something you present often to your clients? Like, give me a list. What do you not want to do? What do you want to keep doing?
Yes, we do that two ways. One, we might just, if they're super busy, we might just ask, what do you hate? And just give us that list. The other thing we ask a lot is track what you're doing every day because business owners don't realize all the nonsense that they're doing.
Oh,
And so if you, and this is one time I would say, get a piece of paper so you can just jot something down as you go. And then at the end of the day, think about the week, think about the month, think about the quarter. What else would you throw in there? And then start putting a price point to that. What is that activity worth per hour? Is it a $25 an hour task or is it a $300 an hour task? You should be doing the $300 an hour tasks. If there are $25 an hour tasks, you need an assistant. Think about those types of things as you're going through it, and that helps you delegate. If you hate it, that's another thing you should absolutely get off your plate. There's no reason to be doing things you hate because also you're probably not very good at them.
right.
oh, go ahead, Joe. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just agreeing with Susan.
Yeah. So interesting that you talk about delegating, but for freelancers or independent contractors like me who don't have a team to delegate to, I mean, how do you actually cover if you need to go on a vacation or take care of a sick parent or whatever? What to do?
So I have some good suggestions on that too. Pair up with another developer, somebody who thinks like you, somebody who might also want to be able to go do those things and be each other's backups. Give each other an insight into this is where I store my files. This is if somebody calls you in an emergency, this is the way that you can access their information. And then make sure your clients know I'm out. Maybe we're not going to make any progress against our work, but if something happens, you have somebody to go to. And you can trade off doing those things. You don't even have to pay each other necessarily. Just make that you handle it for this week, I'll handle it for the next week you're out.
Right.
And the other thing
Yeah.
I would say is, outsource some things. Like if you were trying to do some marketing or even update your website, those are the little things. I mean, just hire somebody to do that so you don't have to think about it. Because our first instinct is, oh, we know how to do this. Let's go do it. Like, don't just outsource some of those things and get the fractional person to handle it.
Well,
Yeah,
guys
you don't
got
have to
weird.
have the employee, you go on Fiverr. They can do stuff too.
Yeah. We've got Claude now.
Yeah, there you go. But you still have to work, Claude,
Right.
right? It doesn't,
Yeah.
it's amazing, but it's not magic.
Yeah, to the point that David Knight posted in the chat about a comment about what you're not going to be using the Claude remote on horseback. It's like, no, it's too bouncy. I can barely type on a phone just standing still. But anyway, since I invoked Dave Knight's name, he has a question.
First and foremost, I've worked with Susan before too. She's fantastic, a great optimizer for what you do with your biz. To Joe's point earlier, the vacation, that's the aha. Uh, I started ACD, went on a ski trip with another colleague in the FileMaker community, started his business the exact same time. We both had about three or four employees. We went on a ski trip. We get up in the morning, I'm reading the paper, he's doing Timbuktu remoting into all these servers and fixing code on all of his staff members and going through that. And I was just like, I could see it right then and there. The other point, I've given sort of session talks about growing your business before, and I talk about when you're a solo, you're in a kayak, you're in a single person kayak. You can turn, you can stop, you get to be incredibly nimble and do whatever you want in whatever fashion you want. When you start building a shop, you're more like in a Viking boat, and you've got people below that are rowing, and somebody needs to be on the deck of the boat steering because you're moving a lot faster and there's a lot more inertia. So if you go down below and you're coding and you're trying to fix firewalls and mess with the financials or get your head deep inside the taxes, there's nobody steering the boat anymore. So if you're not up there with your hand on the tiller and looking at the complexion, the landscape, the environment around you, very difficult. And then just the final thing that Susan said, which echoes what I always say, is what are you good at and what do you like, right? I don't like working on firewalls. I love selling and I love hiring new staff members and so forth. What are you good at? What can you outsource and bring in professionals? And pretty soon, if you put the effort into those areas, you're going to have people around you that are way better at the things that you hate doing anyway. Isn't that a win?
That's totally true, Dave. It's totally true. And I always laugh that anytime I am like, oh, I'm just going to help out my executive assistant. I'm going to jump in and do this thing for her because I know she's had a rough day. It is a disaster. I mess it up. I don't do it right. She has to come behind me and clean it up, or something falls through the cracks. It's hilarious when you realize that. Like, it would have just been better if I waited.
Leave it alone. Yeah.
So for people who are in the room right now who maybe haven't gone through process documentation, don't have anything in place like that, what would you say to them, Susan? Like, how do you get started on this? It seems like such a daunting task.
It is daunting. I mean, 10 years later, we're experts at it. And I just told you I'm still working on stuff, yesterday. It doesn't end. So start. That's really what you do. Pick one. What's the thing that's taking the most time? Or what's the thing that you're like, if I just didn't have to do this anymore, it would make me so happy. And start with that one. You can start with something like making a Loom video. I don't suggest you keep things in your Loom because it's very hard to edit. Get it in writing so that you can make a quick edit if something changes. But start with the Loom. Hey, now Loom writes you a transcript. Take that transcript, put that in Claude. Ask Claude to streamline it and find the holes. It's a great way to start. And now you have one. Now you can go to the next one. And as you get those developed, hand them off to the right people. Make sure your team knows this is what we're doing now. This is where they're stored. If you don't know what to do, go there and find them.
Yeah, so that's interesting, like interweaving all of those different technologies together to help parse out the process. What is this process, and put it into a written form that you can then kind of examine. It's really hard when it's all in your head and you're just reacting, right? Joe, did you start feeling relief immediately when you got that first thing knocked out? Like getting project management off your plate, I guess, was the first thing.
Right. I mean, there was a lot of processes to write. So, I mean, even though you got a couple done, it was like, there's so many to go. Because we all look at our list every day and it's like, you don't feel accomplished till you finish it. And that was one of those points in time. I was like, this is a big list. But even for the, like for the solo people, I mean, you still have certain ways you do things. So if you were to even have someone step in to help you, they should have something to follow, a roadmap to follow. Here's how I work with this client. Here's how I do this. Here's where these things are. It's still valuable to do that. I mean, a business has no value if the owner's tied to it. If it relies and lives and dies by the owner, it has no value. And that's important to know, where if you can document everything, then it's a sellable asset at some point in time, or it can be passed on to however you want to do it. But put the things in place. You don't have to think about it, because that's the other valuable part to me. Somebody doesn't come to me and say, how do I make an invoice? No, it's over there. It's you go find it there. But don't ask me, go ask the managing director, because you went the wrong direction. So you start to build that hierarchy then too. So you have everything in place.
Susan, have you done much work with people who come to you because they are looking to sell their business and need to get their ship in order to tidy it up for sale?
So we've only had one client who sold her business. Most of the people who come to us think they want to sell because they are burned out, they're overwhelmed, and they now hate what they started. I hate my business now. Usually when we start working with them, they come back, they get refreshed, and they're like, now I like it again, and now I can continue running it. We have worked with people who want to sell, but most of the people, it's not because I have a scalable business. It's because I'm burned out. And at that point, that's because everything relies on you, and you can't sell yourself. So you're kind of trapped. It sucks when you realize that. Getting out of it makes the world of difference, and it will make you love it again.
Wow, that's beautiful. Joe, we have another question from Dave Knight. Did you jettison anything from your desk and then later decide that you needed to come back to it?
Things happen in cycles. So you may give something away and it's great for years, and we're just having a discussion. I'm having a challenge internally right now, and marketing is, I'm yanking marketing back to me right now until I come up with another solution. So there's things go back and forth over the cycles of the years where it's like, okay, that's working, that's not working. And so as the owner, you just need to recognize it. And that's the nice thing about some of this now, where if you've got these things off your plate, you can monitor how they're working. If they're not working, you have the opportunity to grab that and pull that back and say, no, this is what, either you can delegate it and say, you go fix this because that's your responsibility, or you can just grab it and then go reassign, or create a new plan. And we've done a lot of that this last year. We implemented EOS with traction probably 3 years ago and have been going through it. And Susan and I started the process. I think I got called to you in January and said, we have too many meetings. I love what we're doing with EOS, but there's too many meetings. So we reevaluated everything. We've been almost 3-4 months now of kind of redesigning some of how the company's running right now. And it's way more productive than it was 3 months ago, like significantly. And it's running smoother right now. And so we've decided we needed a new hire. We've come up with these other pieces, and it's just, so you have to continually go back and reevaluate and say, you know what, let's grab this back, and then back and forth. And, I saw David's note in the chat, the delegation of hiring. So absolutely, because for me, the person can have all the skills in the world, but if they're not a culture fit, then that's a deal breaker. And like this PM that we just hired is amazing. He's perfect culture fit for us. He's got great skills. But to be able to just train someone, the missing pieces, you've got your processes documented. So it's easy to onboard a new hire when you have your processes. It's bring them and get them in line. It's just kind of all just hums together at that point.
I think it's interesting, Joe. You talked about there were too many meetings, and this we find a lot is we'll hear a symptom like that. Luckily, in your case, Joe, you were able to step back and see it from overhead, and you're like, something's not right. It seems like it's the meetings. But it turns out that usually when we hear something like that, or we hear this project management tool just doesn't work, all those things are the symptom. Now we got to get to the root cause. What is really behind that symptom that's going on that needs to be adapted and fixed. And so, we found that, just recently working on those meetings too, is okay, the project management function isn't working the way that it should. So there are too many accountability meetings. So, sometimes it's a bigger thing and you're scratching the surface with the symptom.
Huh. But it seems like just from the description that you've applied here, it was a identification of there's a problem and then a few months of trying to tweak the process, and now you guys are in tall cotton once again. Partly because you have that agility now with your processes, similar to the way you have with writing code, right? Where you have to be reactive to, oh, the client came back with this, and you got to zip, zip, zip. Now you're doing that with yourself, with your own processes, and not staying in this place of everything's carved in stone.
Right. And you're continually looking like with EOS, I gotta keep correcting myself, Susan, but with EOS, you're also looking constantly at the people. Do you have the right person in the right seat with the right skills? And that can shift over time. So as you start to evaluate it, it might just be you're comfortable. And we made some uncomfortable decisions last year, and it's been for the better. It's made a better cohesive team because of those decisions.
Mm-hmm. And so now where you're sitting, Joe, in this place with your 18-year-old, two-time award-winning business, taking vacations, what is your life look like now? Like, what does your self-care and your family life look like now? The things that you were neglecting when you were just head down, completely immersed in your business.
Well, now I used to chef, so now I've got more time. I cook. I'll,
Do you have a guest room?
Smokers on the back desk. Yes, we've got a couple of them. You've got 3 dogs. So I've got time to play with the dogs. Leia hasn't showed up yet. You guys would have met Leia. I've got a little 5-pound Chihuahua. It's Princess Leia, so you guys can make fun of me. It's fine. But it's just I don't explain it anymore. It's just peaceful now for the most part. I mean, there's still conflicts. You're still going to have a day. There's going to be things there, but it's like when I'm done, I'm done. And I might leave early and run downstairs and go work because I want to go cut some glass for the next show, or I might help Leanne with something what she wants, or I have a guy who helps me mow the grass once in a while, but I like to mow the grass, and it's a big yard, but I get to do the things I want when I want. I had a week where I worked part-time for the week and I rebuilt my deck, not because for any other reason than I wanted to do it and just step away and just do something different.
So just in terms of brass tacks, I mean, because that sounds idyllic and wonderful. So before you were working how many hours a week versus on average?
60 to 80 hours a week. And I don't even know if I get to 40 anymore. Now, but as an owner, though, you never really shut off. So I mean, you'll still think about something. It's like trying to come up with some new ideas and things like that. Or you know what? I read this thing. Let's go ask the account. So there's all this stuff that still, as an owner, you're still doing. I might be reading a book. I might be brainstorming a product or things like that.
Doing ETS, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just, I can take, Leanne and I'll just even take and do a staycation. I can just say, Leanne, let's go. And we'll just go run downtown Greenville, which is 30 minutes away, and, stay at the hotel by the waterfall for a night, just to change scenery. So it's just the freedom that it's allowed now to do kind of what I want when I want, but still be responsible for the things I need to. It's a nice place to be.
Susan, are you fitting into that same model yourself?
Yes. The things I work on, like Joe, they don't have a deadline. So, I'm marketing, sales, and finance too. And most business owners end up there. Now, if the business was larger, then you would have employees in that. But those things, other than sales, none of those are, oh my gosh, I have to drop everything and handle this right now. Sales is, you've got to, time kills all
Right, while the iron
deals.
hot, yeah,
You
yeah.
got to do it, right? But everything else, okay, well, I didn't get to that today. No big deal. I'll find another hole in my calendar and we'll do it then.
Great.
I think
Yeah.
even when we're talking about that, like I say, I own the finance part of it. Really, when I'm saying that, I own the payroll part of it. It takes me 15 minutes to run payroll, 25 sometimes, because I've got extra stuff with the contractors. But as far as the rest of it, it's just watching the numbers. I'm just watching the numbers. I have an
And
accountant that handles everything on a regular basis. I have a bookkeeper that does everything. They ask me questions, they coordinate without me and bring me in when I'm needed.
So your bookkeeper runs the invoicing and is that?
All of it.
Mm-hmm.
well, your bookkeeper doesn't run the invoicing, your project manager does.
Well, the project manager does, but I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So the bookkeeper handles like the vendor type stuff. She
Yeah.
handles anything else that comes in as a bill. She handles the bills.
And same for me, I'm looking at finance as I'm keeping an eye on the numbers. I have an accountant. They handle the taxes, they handle the bookkeeping. Our team handles the invoicing. I'm just keeping an eye on, do we need to adjust? Did somebody forget to bill somebody because something doesn't look right, or somebody needs to go collect that invoice? That's one of the things that I'm trying to get my team to understand, the urgency of collecting money. It matters more to the owner than it does to the employee almost every time. But that is a higher level look, I think. Same on marketing. I'm doing some strategic and overview, but I have a marketing team to implement and execute, and they also give me some good strategy there too.
Cool. Well, we're coming to the end of our session. I don't see any hands up. Is there anyone who wants to ask either Susan and Joe any questions right now? We can kind of open this up for folks. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. Well, it might be pretty quiet. I will.
Yeah, I'll throw one out.
Great.
Susan, I know you use Teamwork a lot for the documenting of processes. Do you have people using anything other than Teamwork for that?
Yes, for sure. We work with people who are using other software tools too. Currently, and we love Teamwork because it's one-stop shopping and put everything in one place. But with the advent of Gemini in Google, being able to document in Google Docs also gives you some value, because now Gemini can help you search for what you're looking for a lot better than something like a FileMaker or a Teamwork search. So I do like both. I can make arguments for both, but as long as you are, if you're Microsoft and you want to do it on SharePoint, that's fine. Keep them all in one place, make sure everyone knows where they are, and make them living, breathing documents.
So good. All right. Well, I will say that in the chat, Beatrice shared that Joe is a great chef. So we'll see about when we can come knock on your door. I'd love to see South Carolina. I've only been as close as Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm seeing who's on here. John's been here. Susan's been here. I think everybody's had the brisket at some point or something off the grill.
Brisket sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you guys have any parting thoughts you would like to share with the group as we wrap things up here?
I mean, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Find one thing that you can delegate permanently and get off your plate. One thing.
I completely agree with that. And I think my one thing to add is it's okay to outsource something. Even if as a solo, Elizabeth, you could also get an assistant that is part-time and inexpensive and saves your world. So think about those things. Is there that one thing that would make such a difference in your life?
Sure. Thanks for that. I have actually subcode with a couple people. I subcontracted with an FMDiSC member several years ago. And then I've also subcontracted with Jeremy Brown because he has specific expertise that I did not have. And when I went on honeymoon last year, I found a developer that I was working with and just said, hey, can you cover me for 3 weeks? And I wrote out that document. It was probably not as pretty as anything you would have presented, but it's like, here's the client, here's what they might ask about, and here's this other client, and all the stuff they need to do. So thank you for sharing that, because that was very vindicating for me. It's like, ooh, Susan has rubbed off on me.
And hey, you said it's not that pretty, but guess what? It was good enough.
It worked. It worked
It
well
worked.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us. And thanks to all of you for coming and participating in this really great session today. I'm just so thrilled with the way everything went. Our next meeting is going to be in July. I believe that date is July 10th. And we are going to have the aforementioned Jeremy Brown and Todd Geist. So be looking for that announcement coming soon. And I'm going to give y'all back 5 minutes of your day. So happy Friday, everyone, and thanks for joining us.
Great to have seen so many of you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thanks a lot, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Roman. Thanks, everyone.